Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the full capital raising guide for multifamily, really candidly for any real estate asset. Now, I've used this exact step-by-step process to raise tens of millions of dollars and close on thousands of apartment units, and we've helped our students, hundreds of our students, do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to go through when to start raising money, how to find the right investors, how to pitch, and literally everything you need to know in that regard. And you need to know this may not be the most entertaining video you've ever seen, but it's going to be packed with value that most people would charge for. And before we get into it, I want to mention we've got our multifamily bootcamp coming up right around the corner where we teach you everything about multifamily. And so you can check that out in our description. All right, let's get to it.
Welcome, guys. We are going to talk about raising capital in multifamily. Although, candidly, the things that I'm going to go through will really work in any asset class. I really believe raising capital is going to be harder than finding deals in what's coming. So what you're going to learn is, yes, multifamily takes money. You got to have money to buy multifamily, but it doesn't have to be your own money. That's the beautiful thing about it. And that's why raising capital is so important. Now, I'm going to tell you, today I'm going to talk about a lot of foundational things, okay? A lot of reasons, not the least of which is so you don't get in trouble, because you can't just be a money raiser, okay? And we're going to get into all that. I'm going to talk about when to start raising money. We're going to talk about that today, how to build or join a team, because this business is absolutely a team sport. What to look for in a partner. I'm going to give you some incredible tools for that, how to protect yourself when you're getting into a partnership, the questions to ask when you're, a prospective partner. We're going to talk about how to create a brand. You're going to get it all, I promise you. Okay. So you do not wait until you have money or have a deal to start raising money. I'm going to tell you, we have gotten some phenomenal deals where we took over a contract. I remember a deal in Dallas where the operator couldn't raise the money. Okay. So we came in and we saved the deal, and it's been a screaming deal ever since, about 10 million in equity in that particular deal. So you got to start immediately. People will ask, do I start raising money first or start finding deals first? You do both, okay? But you've got to have a basic understanding of the business as well. You need to understand cap rates and debt structures. Debt is going to be challenging in what's coming as well. And we're going to go deep on that in my boot camp next weekend. But the point is, you need to learn that stuff. You need to learn how to force appreciation. The beautiful thing about our business is you can force appreciation. You can put it back on me for a second. So I'll give you an example of this, okay? In residential real estate, value is based on comparable sales. In commercial multifamily and other commercial asset classes, it's valued based on a multiple of the net income. Over the last couple of years, you could fog a mirror and do multifamily. And there have been a lot of people that have raised capital and have fudged the line. So I want to protect you as much as I want to teach you about this. So today is part of what we're doing today is just to make sure you're safe, okay? Because like it says on this PowerPoint, it takes months or years to build credibility, but you can destroy it instantly, And when you're talking to an investor, you don't have to know every answer, but you need to understand the business model, okay? But anyway, so I'm going to teach you how to build credibility and become a trusted resource for people, which is what we do. We send out information, things like that, and once you build that credibility and you become a resource for people, then they want to work with you. They want to give you money. They want to have become a partner with you. I'm going to teach you how to sell your team. And if you're new, how to get on a team and find a team with a track record. So we're getting into all of that. So here's the other thing. You're going to want to utilize a CRM, client relationship management software. And I'll give you some examples of some if you want to write these down. There's HubSpot. That's the one we use. We love HubSpot. There's Really Simple Systems. There's Zoho. There's Insightly. So a CRM means client relationship management software, and you can, and this is how you track your communication with your investors. This is how you stay on top of it so that you keep the list warm. And so, and this is also how you provide value. And I'm going to tell you, when we get into branding and creating reach tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow we do that. There are two things you need to remember. To build some reach and build credibility and build a following that you can go to when you have a deal, you have to do two things. You have to add value and you have to be consistent. Those are the two most important things, okay? So, and when you're raising money, you're going to start with friends and family. You're going to have one-on-one conversations first, and then you'll get them to opt into your conversations. But tomorrow we're going to talk about what lead magnets are, where you can put out some free content to get email addresses. And we're going to talk about the different social media ways that you can create reach. We've done really well, obviously, with my podcast. We're at 16 million downloads. We have the largest multifamily Facebook group, about 50,000 people in there. But you don't need that kind of volume. You just need, you get a couple hundred people that you're adding value to, and they trust you because they've heard your voice or they've seen your communication. And when you've got a deal, it's so much easier to talk to them about it. And so, what you do is you get them, like I say, to opt in using some free resource. Like I'm going to give you guys free resources today. And it's the same concept. If you go to Rod's links, you'll see a bunch of my free books. And those are all what we call lead magnets for me to build my reach as well. I've done probably 14 books that I give away for free so that, I can create my reach, okay? And that's how you do it. And so we're going to talk about all that. I'm going to tell you, you live in the greatest freaking time on earth to create reach. I mean, social media is just extraordinary. And, it's why a lot of the major news networks are hurting, because people are going into these social media channels and they've got incredible followings. And, that whole environment is changing, and you get to capitalize on it. Okay, so now let's talk about building or joining a team, okay? And again, this business is a team sport. You need to realize that. Yes, you can buy some houses and some duplexes yourself, but you're not going to buy large multifamily yourself. I've seen maybe one person in the last 10 years that I've seen do it by themselves. Everybody joins a team because there's just a lot of pieces. And the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to know every one of the pieces. For example, there are people that have to underwrite the deals, to evaluate them, the analytical people. There are people that go out there and find the deals. There's people that, maybe do the asset management after the fact. And then there are people that raise the money, like you're learning here today. So there's all these different hats that need to be filled. And so I want to talk about, because this business results in partnerships, I want to talk about partnerships and give it some energy, because I'm going to tell you, I happen to host the largest multifamily mastermind pretty much in the world. We just met 2 weeks ago in Dallas, and there was about 10 billion in assets there. There's probably now upwards of 25 billion in the whole group. And I can tell you there have been some big partnerships there that have failed with thousands of units because people didn't do what I'm going to share with you today, okay? So, it's easy to be lazy and or default to friends. And sometimes that's okay. But I'm going to tell you what you need to remember is this is a business, and you have to treat it like that, because there are responsibilities. There are things you need to look for in a potential partner. And again, I know you're here to learn about raising money. Trust me, you've got to get this foundational stuff first. If you go off half-cocked, you'll have 10% of what you need. Okay, so stay with me. Take notes like you're going to teach this, and you're really going to get a ton of value. I mean, this is all value for you guys. Okay. By the way, I've got two panels. I've got a panel today and a panel tomorrow to answer questions. We will take questions. I'm not going to do it while I'm presenting, though, because my brain will fall out on the floor if I try to do both. So I'm going to present, and then we'll start a panel probably in about an hour. In about an hour we'll start a panel. But I'm going to go through this content first. And so if you've got questions, you could go ahead and put them up, but I'm just going to try to avoid looking over there until we've got the panelists on board here. So you've got to be very selective when you're looking at partners. Don't get caught up in the emotion of it. Be diligent and be structured. So I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to perform due diligence on each one of your prospective partners. Okay, you're going to see, ask people that know them what they're about. And make sure you're hydrated today, by the way. If you're tired, you're likely dehydrated. So, do your due diligence on a potential partner. I can tell you, you're going to learn some interesting things. And there are some nefarious people out there. I hate to say it, but you've got to do your homework and don't just jump into something. Super, super important. And again, this is one of these ask me how I know things, because I've made the mistake numerous times. Well, I won't say numerous, but a couple of times where I've moved too quickly and I didn't trust my gut. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. But you want to make sure that they're a fit for what you need. If you're the type AAA squared personality and you bring in another type AAA squared personality, you could have conflict. What you want is complementing skill sets, right? So if you're like me, where you're the mouthpiece and you've got a sales background, or you're a great communicator, you may want to find somebody that's incredibly analytical, maybe even introverted, but somebody that do the analysis. So again, you want complementary skill sets. Super important when you're putting your team together. And by the way most people start in this business is they will align with the team that's already done it, okay? So that, when they're out there raising money, or they're just out there finding deals, if you've aligned with somebody that's got a few hundred doors or 1,000 doors, you can say, we own, I'm putting my arm like it's a we word, but we own 500 doors or 1,000 doors. And so, that's one of the big benefits of being in a group like my Warriors, for example. They own somewhere between 150 and 160,000 units that we know of. We're counting right now. But most of those were done between Warriors that found complementary skill sets, but they all started with a team, okay? So now sometimes they'll put a team together and take down a small deal or two and build momentum, but most of them will align with the team that's already doing it. So what I'm going to suggest you do is start networking, okay? There are tons of networking events. Get out there and meet people, because it really is who you know in this business. When I bring on a new warrior in my coaching program, I have a one-on-one call with them, and I tell them this business is more about your connections. And I tell them inside the warrior community, which is, we've discovered that my most successful warriors are the most connected in the community. But again, I'm not trying to sell you on that. You can do this on your own, in your local market, but you want to get connected. That's what I'm trying to communicate with you. But what I'm talking about here is to protect you when you go to do that, okay? So they got to be a good fit, complementary skill sets. And I'm going to tell you, there's some common qualities that quality people have in common, okay? The first one is organized, okay? There are a lot of details in this business, okay? We checklist a lot of things, and you're going to need to do that as well. And you need organizational ability in your team. Like my team has this super analytical guy, Craig. He's created our software for our warriors to evaluate deals, and he's got all the checklists. And we use what do we use? We use HubSpot to flow a deal. But again, you can use an Excel spreadsheet. But the point is, you need somebody that's organized like that. So that's a critical piece. Okay. The next thing is you've got to understand the business. You've got to have some knowledge. And there are some specific areas that that come into play here. Okay, specific areas of expertise. So let's talk about that a little bit. And so, what is that expertise? It could be previous experience in the business. Okay, it could be somebody that's got what we call the Fannie card, a Fannie Mae. They've done a Fannie Mae loan, for example, or a Freddie Mac loan. It's somebody that's done some multifamily. So that's a piece, okay? It could be somebody that's, like I say, super analytical, loves spreadsheets, and can help with analyzing a deal and picking it apart, okay? Very important that you have that. It could be somebody like me that loves to communicate to raise money or to find deals, to build broker relationships and find deals. It's super important that you don't, like I say, get caught up in the emotion of it, that you actually, what's going on? You also, when you're partnering, if you can find somebody that's already connected, that's got a big, Rolodex is what we used to word in the, when you're looking for phone numbers, used to be paper. I'm a dinosaur. So, we used to use a Rolodex, but somebody that's got a lot of connections. Okay. And, that can be incredibly valuable. Maybe they don't understand the business, but they could be, a great source of leads for investors, right? And so if they're connected to, maybe in the IT space, maybe in the professional athletic space, maybe in, the medical space, there's so many different vertical spaces that have high earners and high net worth people that you can, bring in as an investor. And so if you've got somebody that's connected in that space, maybe they're already in the medical community, or they're an athlete, or they're, in the IT space. Those are three big ones that a lot of investors come from. And if you bring someone like that on the team, you could be, 15 steps ahead of other people. Okay. Legal is another one. And, other property owners, property groups, and certainly, any business owners. That's another big group of potential investors. So these are all verticals that, you want to think about how you can maximize and how you might target these groups. And in fact, one of the things we're thinking about doing is actually having, and this is going off the ranch just a minute, but we're actually thinking about having different landing pages on our website for these different groups to hit them with their pain points, and I'm going to tell you that's a really important thing in marketing. If you can discuss someone's pain points and offer solutions, and of course, a business owner is going to have different pain points than somebody in the IT space versus an athlete versus a medical professional, and so that's one of the things we're thinking about. So there's a little tip. I mean, we're seriously thinking about putting some videos together that are specific to those particular demographics. So anyway, when you're looking for partners, if you've got someone that's connected, that can be huge. So hang on, let me go back. What have I talked? I've talked about knowledgeable. I've talked about organized. These are all super important pieces as you're looking for potential partners. Okay, what's next here? Connected. Okay, supportive. Okay, yes, this is super important, guys. If you get a lot of ego in your group, it's doomed for failure. Okay, you want people that want to help. And I've put together an incredible team on my CREE Capital team, and they're all people that they've got an incredible work ethic. They want to help each other. They support each other, and I can't tell you how freaking important that is when you're putting your team together. So be looking for people like that. Be looking for people that are service-minded, that it's not all about their ego, okay? It's about supporting a team, building a team, working in a team, not somebody that has to be the chief, but people that want to help each other. That's super important. In fact, that's what I look for in my warrior community. We turn people down that apply. If I get a hint of ego or narcissism, they're not in. So, don't need that. Part of my job now with that program is to protect it as much as it is to build it. But you need to do the same thing on your team here. Super important. Okay. Okay, move me over to the other side or take me off for a second. So here are some questions that, and you can wait till I get down there, but here's some questions that you need to ask potential partners to accelerate that process. And I'm going to give you an incredible resource for this, but let's go through some of these before I do, okay? And here's the thing, when you're in a partnership or when you get into a partnership, initially, it could be real easy not to ask the hard questions. You've got to ask the hard questions up front. Super important. So ask them, what is their vision for the future? What do they want out of life? Why are they doing this? What's their vision for this investment, relationship that you're getting into? And really dig into that. Spend some time, have a beer, go over that with them. And then ask them, what can you bring? How are you going to contribute to this partnership? And don't be afraid to ask that question. It's a super freaking important question. You don't want to be a year down the road going, my God, they're just not holding their weight. So ask that question. Okay, super important. Another great question is, what happens when there's a disagreement? Do you think there's disagreements? I'm going to tell you guys, this is super important. Go ahead and put me back up. This is super important. A partnership is like a freaking marriage, okay? It's easy to get into and it's very hard to get out of, okay? And by the way, if you're sitting there watching this going, come on, get on with raising equity, big mistake. This is a critical piece of it. Trust me on that. Critical piece, because it is a team sport. So ask them, tell me about some times you've had a conflict. What happened? How did you handle it? How well do you deal with conflict? Do they? Are they willing to work together to push through a conflict? Super important, guys. I can't tell you how many of these, partnerships end in failure because these questions didn't get asked up front. Okay. So You can leave me up until I get down there. So how would they describe their communication style? Now, you could ask them what their communication style is, but you should also pay attention to it. Okay, are they really abrupt? Are they, are they soft-spoken? How do they communicate? How does that compare to you? And is it complementary? Or are you going to have this? Okay, are you going to have problems? I would ask them or try to determine what their values are. Okay, like in my organization, our number one core value is integrity. We do what's right even if it freaking hurts. Okay, and so find out what theirs are. And I'm going to tell you, I hate to say this, but just because somebody says they're religious, don't assume that they've got great core values. I can't tell you how many times that's bitten me. So just, there's a lot of hypocrisy in that arena. So some of them are, but if they wear that on their sleeve and that's like all they're talking about, be careful. I'm just going to tell you, because there's a lot of hypocrisy with that. And once you've asked them what their goals are, how do they align with this business you propose to do? These are so important to ask these questions. And then, of course, what are they good at? What are their skills? If they have any experience, what do they have? How are they going to help the partnership? Because if it's the same stuff you're doing, then maybe it's not the right fit. But again, if you're approaching a group to partner with a group, you have to figure out, you're going to have to ask these questions of yourself. What am I bringing to the group so that I'm of value? And I'm going to tell you the two biggest things are the one we're talking about today and tomorrow, which is raising money, and the other one is finding deals. And I'll probably do a finding deals masterclass after my boot camp at some point in the next, month or two. But the point is, those are the two big things. If you can bring money to a deal or bring deals to a partnership, money to a partnership or deals to a partnership, you're in. I'm just telling you that right now. So that would be the two things I would focus on first. And then ask them, how do they want to be paid? I will tell you, this came up in our partnership very recently. We had somebody that wanted to come and join our team, and we were completely off base into what they thought the compensation was going to be. They thought there was going to be some financial compensation and a larger percentage of the deal. And we had to straighten that out and make sure we're on the same page. So don't ignore that question. How do they expect to be paid? What sort of a split will they expect? These are all super important questions. And yeah, you're going to want to ask them, do they want a percent of the profit? Just a percent of the profit, which is the most common, by the way. Are they going to need income? And then ask them, how do you think you're going to fit into this? How do you think you're going to fit into this partnership? Let them sell you if you're already on a team or you're building one like this. Super important. Okay. And another one. So how are the roles and responsibilities in the partnership going to be defined? And I'm going to tell you, you should write them down. Who's doing what? And this ties into something else. When you get a deal under contract, okay, and I'm going to say this a couple of times because it's so freaking important. If you are raising money for a deal, you have to do more than that. You cannot just be a money raiser. You have to be actively involved in the deal, especially if it's a syndication. Okay, well, honestly, this applies to syndication. If you're in a joint venture, you're going to be active anyway. And I'm going to drill down on that more in a little bit. But super important, what their roles are going to be. And if you're doing a syndication, I would encourage you to, and I teach this in the boot camp, but let me just mention this now, to use what's called a memorandum of understanding, which outlines who's doing what. But you should do the same thing in a partnership. Outline it in writing in advance, okay? So, and then you ask a hard question. What if one of us doesn't feel like the other's doing a good job? How are we going to deal with it, right? I know that's a tough question, but you got to ask it. If one of the partners wants to leave, maybe they get sick or whatever, how are you going to handle that, right? I can't see what's next there, buddy. Yeah, and do they have any references of people they've worked with? Ask for them. My current partner, Scott, we went through all of these questions before we started our partnership, okay? And so it's not just a do as I say, not as I do. I did this because I've had partnerships that have failed, okay? A couple of them, and they're no fun. Like I said, easy to get into, like a marriage, hard to get out of. Now, this is super freaking important. You're not going to think it is, but it's probably the most important, okay? Your brain is incredibly freaking powerful, okay? And it can see micro nuances subconsciously that you're not consciously aware of, okay? And there's a great book about this called Blink. I think it's the author's Pressman, I think. But how an art expert can look at a painting and they know it's a fraud, but they don't know why they know it's a fraud. This is an example of that. And it's the same thing with people. If you meet someone and your gut just goes, something's off here. Something doesn't feel right, or this is oily or something. You know, you've met people like this. Trust it. Your brain is picking up on something that you're not consciously aware of, okay? Trust it. Every time you ignore it, I promise you'll regret it. Ask me how I know. By the way, at my boot camps, my live events, I say that all the time because I made every freaking mistake you could make. And I say, ask me how I know, because that, don't do that. And one of my students got me a shirt that says hashtag ask me how I know. And now we give them away at the boot camp. But anyway, trust your gut, my friends. Super, super important. If you ignore it. In fact, I'll give you an example of this. When I'm going to do a high level hire, I'll always have a meal with them. And I'll bring Tiffy, by the way. Women, sorry, it's a sexist comment, but it's the truth. Women have better intuition than men. Guys, I'm sorry, but it's true. Now, you can hone your intuition, men, but women are just naturally better at it. So, bring your wife or your spouse or your girlfriend if you're, meeting somebody and you're going to get into a big deal, a big partnership with them. Have a couple of drinks. Trust it. Let me give you an example of this. I was going to hire a COO for my thought leadership business, I'm sorry, it was for my litigation support business. This is a long time ago, and took him to dinner. Went to Fleming's Steakhouse, and we had a drink or two, and he had told me one of the references or one of the jobs he was at that the guy had cancer, and so probably not best to call that guy, and I just got a feeling that something was off with this guy. I don't know if it was the way he treated the servers or what it was, but I went home and damn well I called that guy that supposedly had cancer, and he didn't. The guy had stolen from him. So guys, trust your freaking guts. So, and ladies, obviously ladies as well. When I say guys, I mean men and women both. We have a lot of super successful females, single moms, everything else in our warrior community. Okay, so let's talk about how to create and establish a brand, okay? And so, because you have to do what's called hanging your shingle, right? You gotta hang your shingle, as it were. That's what they used to call it back in the day. You take a shingle and you'd write your name on it. That was the business, okay? I'm not that old, trust me, but that was the expression. But anyway, so you've got to create what's called a purchasing entity. And that's what you use to drive your investments, okay? Like for us, it's creecapital.com. Write it down, but don't go there now and start looking because you're going to miss stuff, okay? But creecapital.com. We're in the process, by the way, of completely redoing it, okay? So you'd be better off to look in a couple of weeks, but we're incorporating a lot more video, which I highly recommend, by the way. But the point is, you're going to have to establish a brand, right? So you got to pick a company name. Now, most company names in our business end in capital, holdings, real estate, investments, properties, partners, so ours is creequitycapital.com. That's the name of the company. CRE mean commercial real estate, equitycapital.com. Okay. But you've got to pick a name. Now, don't just go pick a name and run with it, okay? Ask me how I know. Now, I didn't do it, but one of my students did. One of my super successful students, actually. I think he might be on one of the panels, maybe. If not, I know he's on a panel at the boot camp. But the point is, he didn't check the name to see if it was trademarked. So a couple of things you're going to need to do. You're going to have to go to the Secretary of State in your state where you form the entity and see if the name's available. You do a name search, very easy. So do a name search and see if that name that you want to use is available. But before you pick it, go to GoDaddy.com and see if you can find a domain name that's kind of like it. See, I couldn't find CRE Equity Capital, so we went with CREEcapital.com. That's fine, it works, it's shorter even, it's probably even better. But the point is, make sure you can get a domain name that's kind of like your name, okay? Super important. Otherwise, keep looking, keep playing with names. This will take you a little time. But then once you find a name that works and a domain that works with it, then go to uspto.gov, okay? which is the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, uspto.gov, and search the name. See if it's available, right? So that you don't get what's called a cease and desist, okay? Ask me how I know. I actually did get one of those. I had a frozen yogurt shop and we called it JR Turtles. God, this is a freaking lifetime ago. This is 40 years ago. JR Turtles is what it was called. And Turtles Candies sent us a cease and desist, said, hey, you can't do this. And of course I told them to do that because it wasn't anywhere near a candy. But the point was, you know, it's a pain in the butt, okay? So do a trademark search and make sure. Back then I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm not sure I still do, but the point is back then I really didn't, and I went with it. But anyway, so do a trademark search, check the name, check a domain name, and then what you do is you form an LLC, okay? And we're gonna talk about that a little more in just a second. Find a logo. You know, you can go on Fiverr or where else can they go? Upwork. You can go on Upwork for you can get logos done for a song and a dance. Now, don't email me or text me or message me and ask me what I think of the logo, okay? Email me and text me and ask me how to find deals or how to raise money, but don't get, here's what I'm saying with this, and I harp on my students, my coaching students on this, is don't get caught up in busy work. Don't get caught up in minutia, okay? You know, you need to do this stuff, but the first thing you should be doing is looking for deals and building relationships with potential investors before you get sucked into all this stuff, okay? But then you're going to want to create a website, and you can go to Fiverr or Upwork and do it there as well. In fact, there are some incredible AI tools, and we're researching this right now to provide and teach. But I believe there's a website development AI site now where you can build a website and a song and a dance using AI. So, you know, you may want to research that. But you need to create a website, and you got to get some business cards because you're going to start networking, right? And this is why you have to do this, so that when you meet people, you've got some credibility. That's how you build that instant credibility. And you know, if you can find somebody, if you decide to do the team yourself and haven't found a team to align with yet, you know, if you can find somebody that's maybe got some doors that maybe want to act as an advisor, like my Warriors, I'm listed as a senior advisor on their website. So just to give them some credibility. So you may want to do something like that as well, is what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about a limited liability company, and you can leave me in the corner. There's nothing there. Okay. You know, back in the day when I started, we did limited partnerships, we did corporations, and an LLC wasn't even thought of yet, okay? But it is now the belle of the ball, okay? And you know, like I said, we used to use corporations, and they're a massive pain in the ass because you've got to do minutes every year, you've got to have annual meetings, and if you don't, you could lose your asset protection from that corporation. An LLC doesn't require any of that stuff, okay? So they're easy to form. If you go online and you just put form an LLC, there's probably a dozen companies that you can get it done for, if you do the minimal amount, you can get it done for 150, 200 bucks max, okay? You know, you can have them send you a seal and get your tax EIN number and things like that for you and do other services for you, all things you could do yourself. But the point is, they're easy to form, okay? And they provide the same liability protection, asset protection as a corporation does, okay? Now, the other problem with the corporation, a C Corp, as it were, there's a C Corp and an S Corp, but in a C Corp, you have dual taxation because, and like a C Corp would be anything on the stock exchange, Coca-Cola, Facebook, those are C Corps. And if the corporation makes money, it's taxed on it. If people take money out of that corporation, it's taxed. So it's dual levels taxation. An LLC has single level taxation. You're only taxed once, okay? And yeah, and it's very often referred to as a combination of a partnership and a corporation, which is accurate. And you can decide how you have it set up, taxed rather. You can have it taxed as a partnership or taxed as a or set up as a corporation. But I'm going to tell you, don't ask me questions about this because I hire attorneys to do this stuff, and I don't get caught up in the weeds of this. But you can. It's so easy to set up. The only thing you're going to need help with is doing your operating statement. Okay, they're easy to run, they're easy to manage. You don't have to have an annual meeting. And I'm going to tell you, this is what's used in our business. Okay, this is what people use to do this business. And I'm going to give you some examples of how they use it here in a second. Okay, so when you do an LLC, you have to do what's called an operating agreement, and you're definitely going to want an attorney for this. I mean, I've got in my document library, I've got examples of these, but you shouldn't try to do that yourself. You should have an attorney. It shouldn't cost you a fortune, but have your operating agreement reviewed or created by an attorney. And what that operating agreement spells out is who's the manager. And by the way, it can be managed by a member inside the LLC, or it can be managed by somebody else that doesn't even have any ownership interest in it. It can be what's called member managed or just managed. And so it spells all that out. It spells out who the members are, which are like the stockholders, okay, in an LLC. And you know, with stock, you've got stock certificates. With an LLC, you've got what's called units, and the owners of those units are the members, okay? And it'll lay out who owns how much, you know, what the ownership percentages are, how many units they have. Now, actually, I think you actually can call them stock, but most people just use the term units, okay? And another huge benefit in an LLC is you can allocate how the income and the losses and the tax benefits are spread out. And it doesn't have to tie into the ownership percentages, okay? It's really cool how you can, so like let's say you've got an investor that really needs a lot of tax write-offs and you don't, you can allocate that investor to make it very attractive for them to come into your deal, okay? So again, I'm getting deep here, but I'm going to try to not make your eyes cross, but LLCs are the belle of the ball. You need to understand them and create one for yourself. Now, this is super important, okay? Take me off for a second. Okay. You've got to keep your personal finances separate from the LLC, okay? If you treat it like a personal piggy bank, they can come after you and attempt to do what's called piercing the corporate veil, okay? Meaning they can get through to you personally, okay? If you keep your finances separate, they can't do that, okay? You also, so I'm going to go to the bottom and you can put me back on. But each LLC should have a separate bank account, okay? Or at the very least be ledgered separately, okay? And this is how you keep that separation. Because like I said, you don't want to have somebody attempt to pierce that corporate veil. I actually had that happen once with a corporation that I had, which is why I hate corporations, because we had to go back and figure out the minutes and the meetings, and it was just a pain. But and I would encourage you, and certainly in the larger multifamily space, anything I would say 10 units or higher, you would have each property in a separate LLC. Just do it, okay? Here's why. If you've got multiple assets in the same LLC, it's the rotten apple theory, okay? And I know you guys are chomping at the bit for the raising capital. I want to give you the framework. Trust me, hang with me. You're going to get it all. But I want, for those of you that don't know what I'm doing here, this is super important for you to know, because you need to set all this up before you can raise capital, right? So again, I know some of you are like, oh, come on, get on with it. Well, just hang with me. It's coming. Okay. But anyway, keep each property separate, and you're going to want an umbrella liability policy. They're not expensive, but that's just an added layer of protection you absolutely want to have. Okay. So what are some LLCs that you're going to be setting up? Okay. Well, certainly you're going to set up an LLC to hold the property. And I'm going to show you on a flow chart here how this goes here in the next slide or two. But once you have more than one asset, okay, you're going to probably want to set up a holding company LLC, okay? And that holding company holds your membership interests in the property LLCs, okay? And so I'm going to show you an example of this here in just a second. If you decide to do your own management, set up a management company LLC, then now you can only do that if you're going to manage your own properties. If you're going to manage for other people, then you need to have a licensed real estate broker that has some ownership interest in that LLC to qualify the brokerage or the management company. You could also own your own real estate company and have a broker qualify the real estate company. I did that for decades. So even when I didn't have a real estate license, when I let mine go, I had a broker on my payroll on a small, like $200-300 a month. And we owned the real estate company together, and I got all the commissions on my deals and had access to the MLS and so on and so forth. And you can do that. But if you're going to manage for other people, you need to have a broker. You can use an LLC to create a construction company. The larger players in this space become what's called vertically integrated, and they have, all of these different components, and these are always separate LLCs, but that's what you'd want an LLC for. So this is a great example of a joint venture. Now, hear me carefully, guys. You can only do a joint venture if everybody is actively involved in the deal, okay? So don't show me a joint venture with 10 people. There's no way they could all be active. The most I would say would be 5, and that's even pushing the envelope, okay? So if you're gonna do a joint venture, everybody has to be active. Now I'm gonna tell you, when I was in my 20s, I did millions of dollars worth of deals with partners 50-50. They put up the money. They very often signed on the debt. I did all the work. I found the properties. I managed them. I fixed them up. I rented them, and we split the profits, and everybody was happy. Now, those were joint ventures because they signed on the debt, which is super active. But even if they didn't, if I spent more than a certain amount of money, I had to get their permission. That's active, okay? Now, if you take money from somebody and you just give them a rate of return, you have to do what's called a syndication, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, this is a great graph. Take me off for a second. This is a great graph of a structure. So the property is at the bottom. Now, it's a very simple structure, by the way. It's very simple. These can be much more complex, but this is a very simple joint venture example where you've got the property at the bottom. It's owned in a property-specific LLC, and then you maybe bring in some other partners in this joint venture. They may have their own LLCs, or they may hold the title in their own name personally, and then you at the top, you have your holding company LLC that holds your interest in these assets. Okay. So, all right. So that's a very simple example of a joint venture. Do I have it? Yeah. Here's a more complex example, but not super complex, but just a little more complex, where you've got the property at the bottom. Assume the property's at the bottom there, and it's in a property specific LLC, but that property specific LLC is managed and owned by a partnership operating LLC. Now, typically, you're going to want to set up your LLCs wherever possible in creditor-averse states, and those would be Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada. Okay, and very often a bank will actually require you to set up your property LLC in another state like this because of the strong creditor protection laws that you have in those states, okay? So those are the 3 states I recommend that you consider. I do most of my stuff in Delaware, but all of them are good. So anyway, so in this example, the property's at the bottom. The property specific LLC is you got to have that in the state the property's located, but then you have a partnership operating LLC that governs the property and via the property specific LLC, and that is owned by you and your JV partners. Okay, you could be one of those JV partners, and you could have that in your own holding company LLC, or sometimes people will do it in their own names. I don't recommend you do, but do you need to go set up your holding company LLC before you have a property? Tell me in the chat. By the way, you guys here, let me know in the chat where you're from, if you would, please. I'm not seeing any comments at all, so I'm just curious if I'm seeing the chat. But yeah, okay. Let me know where you're from. I appreciate it. What's that? Oh, by the way, guys, if you're on Instagram and YouTube, go over to Rod's links and there's a link to get on this thing through my Facebook, and you'll be able to ask me questions, and you'll be able to let me know you're here. So are they? I'm not seeing any yet, but maybe it's because there's a delay. But oh, there they are. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, I was scrolling the wrong way. That's why I wasn't seeing them. Okay. Okay. I may take a couple questions on this because actually this confuses a lot of people. So let me go here. Here we go. Okay. I'm live again. Thank you. Sorry about the mix up, guys. I'm looking at my notes here, so bear with me. You can put me on if you want. Yeah, they have a sneaky way of letting you know you're live to screw with you. No kidding. Okay. Streaming is up. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Okay. CRM is HubSpot. Okay, Christy? Just going to answer a couple quick. Okay. Bear with me. Yeah. Sorry about the freezing. Shotgun clause. I'm not sure what that means, Morgan. If you want to give me some, elaborate on that. I have lots of warriors in Canada, Shaw. Okay. Let's see. Just looking at the messages here. I just want to make sure that I answer questions about these LLCs. Do you have an umbrella policy on the LLC personally or both? Absolutely both. Now, here's the thing about the holding company LLC. That company will never do outside business, okay? It will never transact business publicly. All your holding company LLC does is hold your membership units in other LLCs. So it's almost bulletproof. So I wouldn't say you really need the umbrella policy there. You need the umbrella policy on you personally. I'm glad I worked through that in my head. Okay. Okay, as a Canadian, you're told to avoid an LLC. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not sure, honestly, Shaw. I saw you should have your holding LLC in Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming. Not sure how to establish that without being a resident. What you do is you establish it, and then the companies that you set them up with can act as your registered agent. Very simple. You pay a little bit every year for that. Okay, Alejandro, I need one of your team to call me. You can reach out to my team, buddy. I'm looking to okay. People promoting. Okay, hang on. Okay, what is this? I'm Canada, just opened up in Delaware. There you go, somebody did it. Wisconsin, good to see you, Wisconsin. Okay, Florida, of course, San Diego, Bradenton, Ohio, that's right up the road, Ohio. Okay, this thing, here we go. All right, I don't see any questions about this, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay. Go ahead and throw the PowerPoint back up. All right, so this is a JV, a little more advanced JV structure. They even get more advanced than this, even with a JV, but now's when your eyes are gonna cross. So this is a syndication example, okay, of how you're going to set up the entities, okay? And so you've got the property at the bottom, all right? Then you've got the property specific LLC, which is the one that borrows the money, which is what the bank will require, okay, above that. And then you will have a main operating agreement LLC right above that. And that spells out the Class A shares and the Class B shares. Now the Class B is typically you. You're the one putting the deal together. The Class A is the investors that you bring into the deal, okay? And this is not a hard and fast rule, but that's typically how people do it. You know, the investors like to hear that they have the Class A stock. And so they get the Class A stock, which is the limited partners in your deal. They're not active. And then you are the Class B shares. You see that right to the right there. And then you will typically have another LLC that spells out the breakdown in your Class B shares as to, you know, who owns what, okay? And you know, in your operating GP group, okay, your general partnership group, okay, the group of sponsors and key principals that are going to be in the deal, the ones putting the deal together. And so that's the Class B group. And again, like I was talking about, you're going to want to use an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, in your sponsorship group when you find a deal outlining who's doing what. So you never have a problem with, you know, the SEC saying you're a capital raiser. That's a bad day. Okay, so just don't even. That's definitely something you don't want to do. Okay. All right. Nope, I dropped my cap. All right. Okay, so this is an example of a syndication structure. And again, we go into this a lot more detail at my boot camp next weekend. And guys, it's $47, kind of a duh. If you're serious about this business, get your butt there. You're going to be so glad you did. All right. So let's talk about potential legal issues. And again, this stuff is foundational and critical so you don't make any mistakes and get in trouble. Okay. So, like I said, you cannot just be a money raiser unless you've got a series license, you know, like you're Series 7 or something like that, where you can go out there and you're in the stock market and you're raising money for big, like Merrill Lynch and places like that. Otherwise, you cannot just raise money. Okay. If you're raising money for a deal, you need to be on the operating agreement and you need to be actively involved. Okay. You can't just have somebody raise money for somebody or have somebody raise money for you and give them a cut. You'll be on the news. Okay, just don't do it. And again, so anybody that raises money has got to be involved actively in the deal. Now they could be, you know, like if we bring somebody in to help raise money, they're there for the due diligence. They're there helping us do all the unit walks. They're maybe handling some of the CapEx projects, some of the work we're going to do on the property, getting bids. They're participating in our weekly management calls. They're asking questions. They're involved. Okay, that's what you need to do. You should record those weekly calls. They should be actively involved. If they're raising money for you, or if you're raising money for somebody else, you're actively involved. And again, this is the presentation I did for my Warriors at my Warrior event a couple of months ago, and where we dove deep on this. And I can't, like I said, if you didn't hear me say this earlier, I can't dig this deep at my boot camp next weekend, because we're going through every aspect of the business: finding a deal, building a team, evaluating the deal, due diligence, financing it, syndicating it, managing it. So I can't go this deep, and that's why it's really good that you're here, because this is a deep dive in this stuff. But again, I recommend never being on a team unless you're actually in the due diligence. If somebody is in trouble, they're trying to raise money, and you come in after the fact and they want you to help them raise money, but it's been under contract for a good bit of time, you're taking a big risk getting involved unless they have some real active role for you to truly be active in the deal. Again, don't take any risks here, guys. It's not worth it. And I'm going to tell you, in what's coming economically in this country, there's going to be some examples made, okay? The SEC is complaint driven, and there will be complaints. There was a huge $80 million foreclosure in Houston, and I promise you there's going to be SEC complaints with that thing. And you do not want the SEC knocking on your door, but you can do it right. And everybody always comes up with these different ways. What if I do it like this and do it like that? Just remember this: if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, smells like a duck, it's a freaking duck. Okay. And every possible way to get around this stuff has been thought of. So just don't. Okay. Just don't do it. Okay. So you're going to learn about two different types of syndications today. You're going to learn about a 506B, and you're going to learn about a 506C. Okay. And the 506B is what I grew up on, okay, before the Dodd-Frank Act. And the problem with the 506B is you cannot advertise at all, okay? You can't even tell somebody about a deal unless you have a substantive relationship with them, okay? And back then, prior to Dodd-Frank, they had what was called the 3-touch rule. You had to have touched somebody in some fashion, a phone call, a meeting, whatever, 3 times before you could talk about a deal, okay? Like I will tell you, you can't even send emails. You definitely can't post on social media, because there's no way you've got a substantive relationship with everybody on social media. So, and I see people screw this up all the time. I just actually had a Warrior email me about a 506B deal, and I went right back to her and I said, hey, I hope to God this is a very short email list and that you know everybody substantively. And she did. I mean, she's heard me hammer it enough times. But with a 506B, you cannot advertise. And here's the other thing. If you bring somebody in to help you raise money and they screw up, the whole deal and everybody, the whole project is in jeopardy, okay? Again, just be careful with this stuff, guys. There's no reason to take unnecessary risks, okay? Okay, here we go. So now let's talk about common return structures and how you choose the right way to put a deal together, okay? So there's something called a preferred return, and there's something called a promote, and there's something called a waterfall. So go ahead and put it back on me. Okay, just me. So in most syndications, you will see the operator offer a pref, okay? It's called a preferred return, okay? And it's anywhere from 6 to 8 to sometimes even as much as 10%. And then and that money goes to those investors before any splits happen, okay? They get that off the top, okay? And sometimes if you're doing a reposition, like typically we look for a 10% annualized cash on cash return. We want to see our money get us 10% every year annualized over a 5-year period. But if you're doing a reposition, the first couple of years that return might be 3 or 4%. And then it jumps up at the end to 14, 15%. So it averages 10%. And that's what we look for in a deal. But the point is, your investors get that preferred return before any splits. Okay. So it starts with the preferred return. And then after they've received that, then there's a split between you and your investors. And like the last deal we did was 50-50 because it was such a great deal. Last 2 deals actually were 50-50. But if you find a lot of operators have to go to 70-30 split, 70 in favor of the equity and in favor of the limited partners in the deal, and 30% to you, or 80-20. And if you see a deal that's 90-10, that is a super skinny deal and very dangerous. Okay, because what will happen is an operator will look at the returns when they're evaluating a property. When you're doing this, and I teach this all next weekend, but when you're doing this, sometimes you'll have to adjust the return to a higher split to get the returns to, you'll have to adjust the split to get the returns where you need them to be. Okay, I hope that made sense. You'll have to adjust the split. So if the deal doesn't show good returns at 50-50, you go to 60-40, then you go to 70-30, you go to 80-20 until it makes sense. Now, I will tell you, we were looking at a deal in Louisiana, an A asset, beautiful asset, didn't need any work at all, just beautiful. And we would have to have done a 70-30 split on that, okay? We try to do 50-50, but on that deal, we would have had to do 70-30 to have it make sense. And that's okay with a preferred return. So go ahead and throw the slide back up. So you've got the preferred return that comes off the top. Then you've got what's called the promote, which is the split, okay? And like I said, 70-30, 80-20, 50-50, whatever it is. And then you can have what's called a waterfall. So what a waterfall is like we've done this on deals. Like I'm just thinking of one right now where we did one of the deals we did in Ohio was a 101 unit complex, and if we hit a 17% internal rate of return, which is the total return on a deal, and I'm not going to go into the detail on these returns. I can't do it here. I'm going to do it next weekend, but I can't do it here. But if we hit that return to our investors, it went to a 50-50 split. And that's what's called a waterfall, where if you hit a certain return, it can change in your favor. And investors have no problem with that, because if they're getting that kind of a return, they're thrilled. So they don't mind you making a little more money. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, go ahead and throw the slide back up. Let's see what's next here. Okay, before we get into this, I'm just going to look at, I've gone through some real detailed stuff. I'm just going to look and see if there's any questions that I'm going to just try to answer real quick. Where are we here? Sorry, you got a bunch of them here, so give me a second. What was the insurance I mentioned? Umbrella liability coverage, Heather. If I have a Delaware LLC, do I still do my Wisconsin taxes as normal? Yes, you do. But you will have to register that LLC in whatever state you're in. Marie in Lakewood Ranch. Hey there, good to see you. Okay, Misty. Oh gosh, a lot of people in Sarasota. Crazy. Okay, Minnesota. Hey Mike, good to see you, bud. If you're doing fix and flip, is it a good idea to have other investors involved that don't understand much of the business? Sure, if they're willing to give you money and be a passive investor, sure. Do I have an asset protection attorney to set up these LLCs? No, you can use any corporate business attorney to set up the LLCs, Michael. Okay, let's see here. Yes. I'm in Arizona, but moving to Florida. Awesome. Okay, Reddington Beach. Love it. Okay. All right. Let me keep going. Go ahead and throw it up. Okay. So now let's talk about creating an offering memorandum. And at my boot camp, I give you a sample deal package. It's in our materials that come with the boot camp. But if really, you can get one yourself. If you start looking at other people's deals, you'll see how they present it. And they'll very often send you the PowerPoint of how they're going to present a deal. But I'm going to go through what should be in there. And I actually, at the bootcamp next week, can actually go through one, literally every single slide, because just going through it is very helpful to show the participants there what we look for in a market, what we look for in a sub-market, what we look for in a deal, the returns we look for, and how we structure it. And so that's one of the things I do, is we go through this, and we call it a sample deal package, because then you can take it and show it to an investor and say, hey, this is the kind of stuff we look for. If I find something like this, should we talk? So it makes it easier. It's like I said, it's called a sample deal package. You can create one yourself, but if you come to the boot camp, you'll get one for free. We do that on the end of Sunday. All right, so what is in an offering memorandum? You've got to create what's called an OM, an offering memorandum, when you're presenting a deal, right? You got to have something for them to look at. And so, of course, it's going to have a cover page. You're going to have the legal disclaimers, and you're going to want an attorney to look at that. And Typically, you'll have a table of contents and section headers, and then you'll have an executive summary. Now, here's what's important to remember. Anytime you start a business, you have to do a business plan, right? You have to do a business plan. And this is no different. If you're going to buy an apartment complex, you got to do a business plan. You got to talk about what you're going to do with that asset, okay? And so you create an executive summary that lines out what you're going to do. Does that make sense? You know, your investors want to see what your plans are, right? Okay, so we're going to take this property, we're going to do this, this, and this to it. We're going to make these improvements. Here's what they're going to cost. And this is, you know, all in that sample deal package I'm talking about. But again, you can get these packages from any operators that are out there doing deals and create your own. But the point is, that's what you want to put in there. They're going to want to see what your plan is, how long it's going to take you to do your renovations, what you anticipate the rents will go to. So you'll have a market analysis in there. You'll have a pro forma in there. You'll have an overview of the property. How many? It's 13 buildings on 10 acres. You'll show not always sales comps. In fact, I probably shouldn't. In fact, Matt, have me take that off there. But you're definitely going to want rent comps, okay? But definitely rent comps. And you'll create a financial pro forma, which is why you need someone on the team that loves spreadsheets, that loves numbers, right? I've got a CPA on my team, and I've got several super analytical people to help create these financial pro formas. And by the way, if you come to the boot camp, you also get our deal evaluator software, which is freaking incredible for you to check out a deal very, very quickly. And if you come, go to Rod's links, use the code workshop. It's $47 freaking. So, and I don't sell anything there. So just come. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. And if you can't make the whole weekend, if you've already got plans, you can buy the recordings for a nominal upcharge. Okay. All right. So you're going to have rental comps because you need to show, you know, your investor. Well, you need to have done this work yourself to see what you think you can bring the rents to. But, you know, investors want to see that as well, right? They're going to want to see, well, how you anticipate that property performing, you know, what the returns are going to look like if it meets your pro forma, you know, and so the pro forma is super important, and how you set that up is super important. You know, if you show, for example, you know, 3 to 5% vacancy the years you're doing your remodel work, you know, I'm going to call BS. Okay, there's no way you're going to have vacancy, and that all needs to be put into your pro forma to, you know, plan out that work and make sure that the numbers are accurate. Okay, you're going to have your investment structure, what that's going to look like, what we just talked about. What's the preferred return? What are the splits? You're going to obviously have information about you and your team, biographies, what have you accomplished? And this is why it's so good to align with a team that's already done this, okay? Because, you know, it just makes it so much easier. You use the we word. There'll be ways for people to contact you, and you'll have pictures and maps. And I should have had a slide on a couple of the maps, but if you look at other people's, if you go and look at these, you'll see, well, they'll have a map and they'll have logos of where the Starbucks and the Home Depot and the Publix and all the national retailers are at around there. Those are very, very helpful visuals. You'll have pictures of the property. You'll have pictures maybe of the downtown area of that town, you know, things like that. And, you know, this is what you'll see in these things. And after you've seen a few, you'll see how you need to create one. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, you're creating that webinar, and that's how you're going to present the deal to prospective investors. Okay, and you'll turn it into a PowerPoint, and you'll if it's a 506C, which you can advertise on. I'm sorry, we didn't even talk about that. Forgive me. I talked about a 506B. On a 506B, you can't advertise. But when Dodd-Frank came around. See, I did this to my warriors, and they all know what this is, so forgive me. I want to just give a little backup for just a second and tell you this if you've never seen a syndication presentation. So there's 506B, which you have to have a substantive relationship with someone, and you can't advertise. You need to know who they are. Can't do it on social media, can't do an email, blanket email. It's got to be people you know well, okay? But a 506C came out with the Dodd-Frank Act, and it allows you to advertise, okay? I can throw deals out on my podcast. It's incredible. But and I can do emails and I can advertise and I can tell you about them here and everywhere and shout them from the rooftops, but you can only take accredited investors. So what's an accredited investor? An accredited investor is somebody that makes $200,000 a year with the likelihood of that to continue if they're single. If they're married, they have to make 300, and filing jointly, they have to make 300,000 a year. Or they have to have $1 million net worth without their personal residence. And I will tell you, as high as real estate's got in this country, if they own any real estate at all besides their personal residence, they're likely fine. But business owners, they are able to use the value of the business and things like that. But you can only take accredited investors in a 506c. So once you turn that memorandum into a PowerPoint, you post it everywhere where you're going to have your webinar on this deal, right? You send emails, you put it on social, and you market it, and then you set up your webinar. I'm going to go back to that for a second. Go ahead and put it on me for a minute. And you set up your webinar to present it to your group of investors. So that's how you do a presentation. So we're going to talk about your pitch, okay? You could call it an elevator pitch if you want, okay? And by the way, forgive me, guys. I threw this together to add value to you. I really didn't plan to set this up as this big presentation for you guys. I just want to add as much value as I can. This is what we presented to our warriors. So I didn't, it's a little disheveled, but are you getting value? I hope you're getting value. Let me know if you feel like you're getting value. I hope you are, because I do this to add value. But anyway. So what's your pitch? Your pitch is something when someone asks you, what do you do? Okay. And that's the question you want to get to. So, to get to that question, you always ask them. So what do you do for a living? And so here's, don't sound like you're reading this. Don't memorize it to the point where you sound like you're reading it, but you do need to really practice it in front of your spouse, your dog, your kids, whatever, so that it's just effortless. So we're actually buying multifamily properties. We're really getting excited because there's incredible opportunity coming. With this economic environment, there's a lot of fear, but there's going to be incredible opportunities. We're going to capitalize on it. By the way, if you know anybody that wants to partner, I'm always looking for partners. And I would call them partners, okay? They're really investors, but they could ultimately maybe be a partner. You find somebody with a lot of money, you put up all the money to do a JV deal. They could be a partner, but that's how I talk to people. But here's some other ones. I'm investing in multifamily properties in markets that are economically growing. We look for properties that we can add value to and where we can force the appreciation, where we can raise the value based on our efforts. And, who do you know that might be interested in partnering? It's a little softer for me where I say, hey, if you know anybody that might ever want to partner with me or get involved, please let me know. And that's softer. It's not as hard. But you can do any version of this. We help people invest in multifamily properties, big multifamily properties, by pooling people together. That's another one. So there's, just don't overthink this, but have it so it's super congruent when someone asks you that question, so you're not fumbling, okay? And that's very, very important. Okay. Let's see what's next here. Okay, so now I talked about this. I forgot I had a slide for this. So accredited versus non-accredited. Remember, on a 506B, you can take non-accredited. They don't have to make, doesn't matter what they make actually, but if you're going to do a 506C and advertise, they have to be accredited. And again, accredited is $200,000 in annual income with the expectation of it to continue, $300,000 if they're filing jointly, or $1 million net worth, not including their personal residence. That or is in the wrong place, Matt, if you remind me, okay? It's income versus net worth, okay? So that or is in the wrong place. Just imagine that or is right in front of 1 million personal net worth, okay? Now, a non-accredited is all other what they call sophisticated investors. And there really is no definition for sophisticated. It just means somebody that's got some business sense, okay? But, I will tell you, most of the marketplace up to this point has been 506Bs with non-accredited investors because, you can get people that don't meet those income requirements. But just be careful. Do not post on social if you're doing a 506B. And again, I'll have an attorney present this in much more detail at my boot camp next weekend. about syndication. We'll have a whole hour on this. But anyway, I wanted to give you a quick overview on a 506B and a 506C accredited versus non-accredited investors. Okay, here we go. Here, this lays it out a little better. You can leave me on there, it looks like. Okay, so with the 506B, you're limited to 35 investors that can be non-accredited. Okay, you can have unlimited accredited investors in a 506B, but you can only have 35 of the what they call sophisticated that don't make the income to be accredited. But you've got to have that pre-existing relationship. You can't advertise. You can't solicit in any way. You can't do public webinars, Facebook posts, nothing, okay? Just don't do it. Don't ask me how to get around it because you can't get around it, okay? Now, on a 506C, however, where you're only taking accredited investors, you can shout it from the freaking rooftops. You can do anything with it. So that's the difference, okay? And I will tell you, when Dodd-Frank happened, guys, I will tell you that the whole world opened up for us. So it was awesome. Okay. So what is a pre-existing substantive relationship? This is what they say you have to have if you're going to do a 506B. Okay. And if the relationship is pre-existing, you're basically, by the way, guys, you're offering a security is what this is under the SEC Regulation D. And so it's not considered a general solicitation if you've got a pre-existing relationship. But it's got to be existing prior to the commencement of the offering. That's the pre-existing substantive relationship, okay? Now, there's no set amount of time for that relationship to exist, but it's got to be pre-existing, and there's got to be sufficient time between the establishment of that relationship and the offer so that the offer is not considered to be a solicitation or advertising. So this is the technical jargon from the SEC that they look at to determine if it's a pre-existing substantive relationship, okay? Very, very important that you don't, skirt the line on this. Don't toe the line on. You can toe the line, but don't go over the line. Okay, here we go. So here it's further defined. A substantive relationship is one where the issuer has sufficient information to evaluate and does in fact evaluate a prospective offeree's financial circumstances and level of sophistication to determine their status as an accredited or a sophisticated investor. And self-certification by this person regarding their status as accredited or sophisticated is not sufficient to establish a substantive relationship. You have to do that evaluation yourself, okay? You can't allow them to self-evaluate themselves, okay? All right. So what's sophisticated? I kind of touched on this. The SEC defines sophisticated as someone who has sufficient knowledge and experience in financial and business matters to make them capable of evaluating the merits and risks of a prospective investment. It's a very loosey-goosey definition by design, okay? But, if you get some 18-year-old that's never owned anything, that could be a problem, right? But if they've been in the business world a little bit, had some schooling, whatever, I've actually never seen this attacked, but I imagine it could be. So there's the definitions. That's it for today as far as the slide deck. And we're going to bring our panelists on now. Are they up? Yeah, okay. So we're going to bring our panelists on, you guys. I don't have stats on you guys, so I'm just going to introduce you and have you just do a quick bio of who you are, like literally 15 seconds, what you've done in the business, and obviously ladies first. Hey, Jennifer Barnett, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too. Yeah, so I've been in the business for 5 years. I started with you back in 2017. Actually, that's more than 5 years. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, but I now have 950 doors as a general partner and 1,500 as a limited partner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. James May. James is actually on my CRE team. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Rod, thanks. And thanks for the invite to be panelist. Yeah, I don't actually count doors, but I'm probably around 1,500 doors. Been investing since 2005 and started your group in January 2020. So love being a warrior.
Good to see you. So I've been in real estate since 1980 and multifamily for the last 6 years. And let's see, I have 2,203 units transacted. I sold some, but that's how many I transacted. And I have 315 under contract.
Fantastic. And you joined the Warriors quite a while ago too, like back
Yeah,
in
so me,
17 or
Steve,
18?
Jennifer, probably all around the same time. Me and Jennifer were at the first boot camp.
No kidding. Holy cow. Good
I,
God, that was a lifetime ago.
yeah, I
Steve,
think you
good to
are
see-
too, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Were
yeah,
you?
2017. It sure does feel like a lifetime ago.
Wow. Now that's a fluke. That doesn't happen very often where I have a panel with all, people that have been around a long time. James, now you're fairly recent. How long have you been in?
January 2020, right before COVID,
Okay.
your LA event. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. Okay. Awesome. So Steve, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Yeah, no worries. So started in real estate in 2012, joined the Warriors in 2017. And not only does it feel like a lifetime ago, literally it's changed my life. It's unbelievable what's happened. We've done, as a GP, sponsoring deals, over 3,000 units in 21 different deals. We exited half of those in the last couple of years. And as it relates to this particular topic, we've raised over $50 million or $53 million now
Wow.
in LP equity, and then another 18 million in pref equity, through an actual equity shop.
Right. By the way, guys, what he just talked about was, when you're doing larger deals, you can go to private equity firms and raise big chunks of money, and that's what he was talking about, is preferred equity. There's some nuances to that. We will talk about that at the boot camp. We're not going to get into the detail of that right now, but if you're doing a larger deal, that can be the saving grace to get you over the hump to get a deal done. But they exert some controls and things like that, and they get better returns and so on and so forth. So there's nuances to that, and they're all over the board, honestly. So Ali Bonilla is asking, what have you found to be the best way to find a good partner? Our real estate investor clubs, networking, other groups. Jennifer, or you guys raise your hand when you're ready to answer, so I don't put somebody on the spot.
Wow. Well, I actually started out underwriting a lot of deals with Steve here, and he and I thought for sure we were going to be business partners, and the market just did not cooperate. And so, as life would have it, he found another person to do a deal with in another market. And as it turns out, 3 years later, Ed called me a couple days before I found an off-market deal, and he said, "Hey, if you ever want to underwrite with me." So, this network here has really provided a way to kind of figure out who you like and who you really think would make a good partner, but you have to kind of envision yourself with them for the next 3 to 5 years. And so obviously your values need to align. You need to have the same underwriting principles, which I think is really important. And that's why this group is so valuable. Because
She's talking about the Warriors. She's talking about the Warriors. But listen, guys, the Warriors may not make sense for you, and that's fine. But you can create this outside of this. Okay, you can go to real estate investor club meetings, meet other people, and create that kind of a dynamic. So I don't want you to be discouraged. I'm sorry I interrupted, Jennifer. I just wanted to. Yeah.
No, but I think it's important that you have the same philosophy as your partners. You've also got a whole slew of questions that you can ask your partner to make sure your motives are aligned. I mean, you want to make sure that whoever you're partnering with has the same agenda and the same goals in mind for the asset. And that, what do you do when you have hard times? Because there have been hard times over the last couple of years, and you want to make sure that you handle them the same way, and maybe even do a strength finder test. So those are all things that I would consider.
No, that's all great. And you just reminded me that I completely forgot. Guys, write this down. If you haven't already, rodslinks.com, and in there in the free books is a book of questions to ask when forming a partnership. I completely forgot. You just reminded me, Jennifer. And we went through a bunch of these questions earlier when you probably weren't on. But this has all of them. Any possible question you can think of, and it's free. So the price is right. And so, Ed, you had raised your hand. Please elaborate.
I would just say network with a purpose. Everybody you're talking to, find out what you could offer each other. And if you're somebody that's looking for an analytical person, make notes of it and keep track in a CRM. You want to find people a lot of times with opposite skills that you have. And then you just keep a list, okay? And then you build your team accordingly.
That's great. That's great. Anybody, any further elaboration on that question, Steve?
I
No?
think Ed
Okay.
and Jennifer said it all.
Yeah,
The only thing I'll
they sure
add,
did.
literally,
Yeah.
do not ignore the book that Rod just held up.
Right.
It's
Thank you.
you know, I ignored a couple of, even just a few of the questions in that book, and I've already regretted it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important, guys, because you get caught up in the emotion of a deal. You find a deal, you're like, oh man, we're going to do this no matter what. Stop, take a deep breath, pull out the book, go through the questions, make sure you're aligned, make sure your core values are aligned. Remember, I talked about trust in your gut. Trust your gut. It's super powerful. Your brain is so powerful. You got to trust it. Okay, Michael Balducci asked, in today's market, what's everyone's metrics looking like? How many deals you're underwriting a week or a month? How many LOIs are you presenting? How many deals, are you finding? Anybody want to take a stab at that question? Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, without giving exact numbers, we're maybe 25% of the volume that we were looking at a year ago. And we haven't done a new deal yet this year. So
right. Yeah,
we
I mean, I
did
told you
3 or
guys, if
4
you didn't
deals.
hear me when I started, we're at a 74% year-over-year decline on CoStar, which is the big, like the MLS for multifamily or for commercial real estate, period. And they quote a 74% year-over-year decline. So first quarter of this year. So things have really dropped. But here's the thing to keep in mind, guys, and I want to tell you this is, so properties aren't selling very well. Interest rates continue to go up. They went up again this week, and there is a lot of debt coming due. There's about 1.6 trillion in debt coming due over the next by the end of next year, and half a trillion of that is multifamily. So there's going to be incredible opportunity because these people either have to put money into refinance or they have to sell and they have to meet metrics for a new buyer, and so. There's going to be heavily discounted deals. I don't know if you guys saw in the news today about that office building in San Francisco. Did you see that headline? They're selling an office building for 20% of what it sold for previously in downtown San Francisco. So, yeah. I mean, that's an extreme example. New York and San Francisco have real office issues, but there's just a lot of people that have debt that's coming due that are really going to struggle. Okay, Julian asked the question, if I reached my 35-person limit on a 506B with partners and I haven't reached my target raise, can I open it up to 506C? Who wants to take that? The answer is yes, but I just
yes.
Yeah.
So
yes, you can.
If you close that down with obviously you need to work with a securities attorney. But if you close down your 506B, you've stopped taking in money and you launch a new 506C for the same asset, but it's a separate raise. There are ways to do that, but it's going to cost you a little bit.
There are ways to do that, but you can still take 506C. She didn't ask if you were advertising. She just said, can you take 506? I'm sorry. Can you take 506C partners? I'm sorry, the way she did ask it, you're right, Steve. Your answer is correct.
If you were going to convert it, but you don't have to. You can just take
you don't have to convert it. You can take accredited investors. The point is you can take accredited investors after you're 35 non-accrediteds, but you can't advertise unless you do that switch over. And that is not that common, guys. That's a fairly recent phenomenon where you can go from a 506B to a 506C, and you definitely want to be very careful and have a good SEC attorney involved. Ed?
We're doing our first one right now, and I love it. We did it for 10 days for the 506B, and then we switch. My one change I'll make for the next one is I'll go 2 weeks because, it takes you a little time to get your paperwork and all that in order. But yeah, I love it.
Wow, that's awesome. So you can bring in non-accredited investors and then you can go advertise it after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Now
you got to be careful.
It doesn't really make sense to do it in the beginning when you're new because you really don't have the platform. You need the platform for it, because who are you going to advertise to,
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Okay, hang on. Okay, it's a self-serving question. Ruben, as a completely newbie with zero experience in real estate, is the boot camp the right place to start?
Yes.
On the count of 3.
Yes.
Ruben, if you come and you don't freaking love the event, I don't mean like it, I mean freaking love it, I'll give you your $47 freaking back. Be a first for every. It's be a first time, but first time for everything. But anyway, yeah, guys, if you're brand new, I'm offering it for $47 freaking next weekend. I don't sell anything there. 16 to 18 hours of training, nothing being sold. And there's the link, by the way. Rod's links. You can get the book there. the partnership book, as well as other free books. By the way, you can also get my #1 bestseller. Just pays like $6-7 and we'll ship you the physical copy of it. And I've never had a negative comment about this thing. So lots of free resources there. Anyway, okay, here we go. So Ruben, I hope to see your butt there, brother. Okay. Kevin Brent Cook, what if you are assuming loans at okay, good question, buddy. Good question. What if you're assuming loans at sub 4%? Is that a meaningful deal point?
Yes.
Same answer. Same answer. Hell yes.
Doing one now.
Are you really? You're doing one right now, right? Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Ed actually. So what's the loan to value on that assumption?
On mine at 79, just slightly less than 79.
Holy
It was a
Toledo.
redeveloper
That's amazing.
but we are getting a good deal on it.
Yeah. And my point there is a lot of times if you try to assume a loan, if they're only at 50% loan to value, you're not really getting enough leverage to make it worth it, likely. But for Ed to get that kind of leverage on a 4% loan in this market is insane. That's a great deal.
Yeah. No, that's a screaming deal, that loan to value. That's awesome. Yeah, because like you said, you might have to raise a whole bunch more equity to assume a loan like that. But great question. Okay. Hang on here, Douglas. What can I really? They keep popping in here. What can I really say with the monthly cash flow per unit? I want to ask questions. I want to answer questions that I think are going to. Well, I'll ask it. So, what can I realistically expect the monthly cash flow per unit to look like as a general partner? With example of different numbers of doors. And what I'm going to tell you on that, Douglas, is if you're doing a joint venture, it's a whole lot different than if you're doing a syndication. If you're doing a syndication, you're likely not going to see much cash flow until you've repositioned the asset and like refinanced or had a liquidation event of some sort, either the refinance or a sale. But if you refinance, that's our model. You refinance, pull the money out, then you're going to see cash flow because they're not going to get the preferred return anymore. But if anyone else wants to expand on that,
I'd like to just add something to that. So, I agree with that. As a GP, we get a nice kick in the beginning with the acquisition fee. Then what I do is I take that and I put that right into a deal as a limited partner, sort of. So that way I get my cash flow during the deal hold. And then when we sell it, I get my GP share and my LP share. So I'm constantly getting, cash flow there.
Anybody ever purchased under a 501c3 nonprofit? I haven't, but I don't. Okay, that was a question. No. You can. There is a strategy around that, but it's a whole. There's a lot to it. Obviously, the only income you're going to get is from your salary in that 501c3. To me, it's a little nefarious, but okay. Vanessa, I've only done smaller deals under $1 million to start my first big deal. What's the best entity structure to use? You're focusing on the minutia, Vanessa, respectfully, okay? It's going to be deal specific, okay? She's asking about entity, because I talked about entity structure. I tried to lay the foundation for raising money so people had a framework. And so we talked, high level about entity structure. But anybody want to take a stab at enhancing my answer?
And the property is always going to be purchased in an LLC to begin with. Right. And then, depending on your partnership, you may have additional entities piled on top of that, but LLC
or syndication, depending on how you set it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
that's why we pay attorneys.
That's why we pay attorneys, and let the deal dictate the structure, Vanessa.
That's actually the best answer there was what Ed just said. And my answer is I don't care what the structure is. My attorney worries about all that.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay, Michael asked you to do that. I didn't hear it either. I'd like to hear it again, Ed. Your enhanced response to the cash flow. Could you please speak to that again one more time?
As a GP, I get an acquisition fee when we close on the property. It could be anywhere from 2 to 3% or whatever of the purchase price. So we split that up amongst the GP depending on what our roles are. Right. Now, as a GP, and on my deals, we give a preferred return interest, for our LPs. So maybe it's 6, 7, or 8%. So that doesn't leave.
LPs are the limited partners that are bringing the money, that are the equity that you raised. I just want to make sure the acronyms don't go past people.
That doesn't really leave a lot for the GPs. So the GPs don't make a lot of that return until we sell the property. So what I do, and I recommend everybody do, whatever acquisition fee you get, put that right into the property on the LP side. And then you'll have cash flow throughout the deal.
Sure. If whatever you put into the deal, you'll have the cash flow for that. No, that's a great idea. And I can tell you those acquisition fees are not insignificant. I mean, I've had $1 million acquisition fees on assets that we've purchased. Okay. So, they are not insignificant. Okay. Let's see. New comment.
And actually, Jennifer and I are actually getting our GP share of the cash flow now on a deal.
It's a nice day.
It is a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day. That's a good day. Okay, hang tight here. Throw some questions up here, guys. Anybody work with Canadian investors?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, question. As a Canadian, I can't get credit in the US. I own a California corp and have cash in a bank. If any of you had $100,000 to throw into a deal, what could I expect as a return? And should I expect a position in the deal? Probably not a position in the deal. I'm just going to let me answer that part of the question. But anybody want to speak to the rest of this question?
There are probably structures and ways that you could figure out legally to do your own deal, right? To be your own GP or sponsor or single owner of that asset in the US with credit and all that. I'm not all that read up on how to do that exactly. I'm actually Canadian, but I've been living in the States for so long, I haven't even tried to invest as a Canadian.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I was born in Quebec.
Oh,
and I have lots of family up there as well. But so investing as a limited partner certainly makes it very easy, because if you have an EIN in the US, a tax ID for your LLC or your corporation or whatever it is, and you have a bank account here, then you can invest via that bank account or that entity into limited partner deals. So the deals like Jen and Ed are doing, and like Ed said, there might be a 7% preferred return, so you'll get your 7% cash flow on that deal year to year, and maybe when the deal sells, you end up with an average of 15, 17, maybe 20% average annualized across that 3 to 5 year period. So it's certainly a good way to get started anyway, while you figure out all the other stuff.
And here's another question around getting started. So Christy Silness asked, do you recommend being an LP on a deal first? It seems like there's a lot to learn about being a GP. Who wants to take that question? Jennifer.
I can take that. Yeah. So I absolutely recommend being an LP first. It gets you exposure on what's it like to invest in a deal. What's the process you go through, so that when you're finally a general partner on your own deal, you can walk your investors through the process because you've done it yourself. It also gives you so much more confidence when you're talking to brokers that you're invested in a deal and you now have 403 doors and you're invested
even as an LP. Even as an LP,
your entire cadence and confidence changes when you're talking to brokers, and they don't ask you, are you an LP or a GP?
No.
They just want to know, do you have skin in the game? Are you invested in multifamily?
Yeah, that's a great tip that she just said. If you invest as an LP in a deal, and you're able to use that on your resume. And in fact, once you become a GP, it actually will enhance your position with the lender. It might even save you a little bit on the interest rate.
It helps you talk the talk.
What's that?
Absolutely.
It helps you talk the talk.
It helps you talk the talk. You learn the nomenclature.
Exactly. If you're having multiple conversations, so you have a conversation with Ed, and conversation with Jen, and conversation with James about their 3 different deals in a 2-month period, let's say, you're going to learn a lot just from those conversations. Then once you eventually end up investing with them, now you've seen all the legal documents. You've gone through the process on a portal of signing those documents, of wiring the funds, and then you get monthly updates about the property, and you're getting to see all that language and all that background and experience that you're having bolsters your confidence, like Jen said.
And I don't know about you guys, but on our deals, we'll let our investors come and participate in the due diligence if they want, be there to help on unit walks. We have educational webinars after the fact, teaching our investors some of the behind the scenes stuff that that I can't teach from stage. because this is too much. So you get a lot of the behind the scenes look as well as what happens with a deal. It's a great way to start, Christy. Now, that said, you should still come to my boot camp next weekend so you have a really good overview of the business and understand it, because why would you invest in something without at least a pretty decent basic understanding of what you're investing in? You guys agree with that?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Let's see here. Wouldn't that money be better to put if you're able to put money in your own? Okay, well, Leo says, wouldn't that money be better to put in your own deal if you're able to put more money in your own syndication or as a GP rather than someone else's as an LP, especially if you already have the knowledge? Well, that's the caveat there, buddy. If you've already got the knowledge, then that's a whole different conversation. But if you're brand new and you want to learn, then what we just said makes more sense. I'll just take that one. But sure, I mean, if you can put your money in your own, go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna like to add that I call it the velocity of money. It's like if you have money sitting there and it takes you a year to get into the deal, well, you could have had that money working for you in a limited partnership for a year, and you don't really need money to get into a GP deal.
Right. Well, that's right. Thank you. I can't tell. I mean, I've bought thousands of units without a dime of my own money. Okay. Now, you're Rod Cleef. Well, no. Okay. A lot of my students have bought deals without any of their own money. Now, let me explain that to you though. Like you've got the GP, the general partners, and then you've got the LPs, the limited partners, the money you're bringing in, raising capital. Well, on the GP team, you can bring somebody to the team that puts in $500,000 or $1 million, so that when you approach limited partners, you say, yeah, as general partners, we have $1 million in the deal, or we have 10% of the deal, or whatever, in our own money. But it doesn't have to be your money, okay? And I'll add another caveat. There's what's called at-risk capital in a deal. It's the earnest money. It's the money for the lender, for the third-party reports, the appraisal, the survey, and all that stuff. There's the due diligence costs. That's called the at-risk capital. You could give up a slice of the deal for that at-risk capital. Sometimes it's as much as 10% of the general partnership for the at-risk capital, because their money is at risk, right? They're putting it up, and so, again, you can raise all this money, and this is how it's done, guys. And so, and Leo, hopefully that helps you, buddy, because I'm going to tell you, in what's coming, I would tell you to keep your powder dry a little bit right now, Ed. This goes contrary to what you just said as far as the velocity of money, but in what's coming, cash is king, okay? And so, now it doesn't have to be your own cash. It could be the availability of cash, but I'm in a ton of cash. It's killing me right now with inflation, but I'm hoping that was a smart move based on what I think's coming, okay? So we'll see, but okay, here we go. Ali, sounds like a syndication is very common, but what are your thoughts about getting a 70 to 80% loan to value loan, putting down the remainder with a sole partner on your own 10 to 40 unit multifamily? Did I say that too fast? Did you guys get all that? What about using your own money on a 70 to 80% loan to value? Well, who wants to take that piece first in today's market?
So
yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I'll say, number one, if you've got a partner and you can find a deal and you can actually qualify for the loan, wonderful. 100%, yes. That's what you should be doing.
Yes.
Loan to value right now is more like 65.
Yeah.
And interest rates are crazy high.
Right.
But that's kind of beside the point. If you can actually pull off a deal on your own with a friend who has a bunch of money, fantastic.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Right? I'd rather do that than do a syndication.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
That's not always easy to do. And I do like my 200 and 300 unit properties in San Antonio or Houston or, Atlanta. And I live in Boston. And,
right.
I'm not going to buy a 30 unit property in a different state. It's just not worth it for me.
Mike is asking, yeah, exactly. So, but listen, if you can find a high net worth individual, I mean, this is what I did, but these were houses, so they would require huge amounts of money. At the time, it was $5,000 to $10,000 a house. You put up that money, you get 50% of the deal. I'll do all the freaking work and match made in heaven. But I know people that have raised $1 million, all the money needed to buy a property and split it 50-50. I mean, I know. I'm not going to name names, but I know people that have done that, and you can absolutely do that. And I would say you probably have to have a little bit of acumen under your belt first, but you absolutely can do that. So Mike is asking, it's kind of a marketing question, do you hire someone to create materials for your drip campaigns or lead magnets? If so, any recommendations? So anybody doing this marketing for their investors, I can speak to it if you aren't.
Well, I have a marketing company, but I don't think you need to start off that way. Start off with friends and family and start off with a newsletter and build your network. We call it capital raising, but I think it's more about adding value to your investors.
Boom.
That's what it's
Boom.
about.
Boom. Listen, and we're going to go into this more tomorrow. Trust me, in a big way. By the way, just so you know, so if you're hanging in there, tomorrow we're going to be talking about where to start raising money, where to find potential investors. We're going to talk about networking, how to network properly, how to prepare to network, how to build and nurture investor relationships, how to build a brand and capture a wider audience. How to use social media to kick ass in this business, search engine optimization for investing. How to define your niche. What to cover on your first investor call. So we're going to go through all that tomorrow, okay? And I know some of you are like, well, why didn't you go through it today? Because I had to lay the foundation first, so you don't get in trouble, okay? That's why. But anyway, all right. So that's all again tomorrow. And like I told you earlier, if you add value and you're consistent, you're going to create reach. Period. Okay, but if you go out there on social media and you put crap out there, you try to just do all chat GPT, it may not be as good. Okay, so now I'm not going to say ChatGPT is crap because it's pretty damn good. I'm using it a little bit myself now. I rewrite it though. But the point is, there's some incredible tools, and I would encourage you to embrace AI for sure, because my whole team is working on it. Matt's been working on it. I've been looking at it, and to embrace that for sure, because there's just so many incredible opportunities there. Melinda, when you sell the property, are you dissolving the same state LLC, or do you keep the entity and move the gains into a 1031 exchange position? Anybody want to tackle that one? If you sell it, do you keep? Well, certainly. It's really like, if you're selling and do a 1031 exchange, do you keep the entity? The answer would be yes. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, we just did one of these. So we actually split the entity into two entities prior to selling, because only half of the investors actually wanted to do a 1031. So the ones that wanted to do a 1031, we split off into a separate entity. We paid them out. The ones, that didn't want the 1031, we paid them out. The original entity actually rolled into as a 1031 into the new deal. So yeah, it's totally
by the way, it's called a TIC deal, guys. It's tenants in common. It's got some complexity. The organizational chart, like what I showed you guys with entity structuring, it'll blow your mind. I mean, it'll make your head want to explode. They're very, very complex, but they're very common as well. So again, this is why you have an attorney do this for you, and we'll have an excellent attorney doing a presentation next weekend on this and syndication. So. Okay, Alex is asking, when do you expect any price fall in California? The prices in San Diego are ridiculously high. Well, Alex, first of all, no offense, but I would not buy in a blue state, okay? And the regulations, the regulatory oversight, the politics is just ridiculous in my opinion. That's not a political statement. It's a cost of doing business statement, okay? Now that said, the prices haven't really fallen in a big way yet at all. Right now, it's still the people that want to sell. What's coming, in my opinion, is going to be the people that need to sell. And that's what I'm excited about. So I don't know if anybody else wants to expand on what I just said, but I thought I'd take that one. All right, hang on here. Ron,
I'm going to say one thing quick, just on the blue state thing, just to make sure you don't get in trouble. So it's not about the politics. It's about the business environment. In red states, the business environment from a landlord perspective, it's not that we want to take advantage of tenants, but if you have to evict, you can in a reasonable amount of time. In a blue state, you can have all the reason in the world. You can have the guy on video destroying your property, and it's going to take months and months for that eviction. And it's just not fair to the business owner.
Today on Fox News, they're talking about giving squatters the right so that you can't get a squatter off your property in a blue state. And so, it's about business, and it's not just our multifamily landlord business either. It's business in general. And so, again, I don't want to get into a political diatribe about this, but I'd rather go for low-hanging fruit, where it's easier to do business. That's it. It's strictly a business decision. Yes, I have very strong political beliefs, but this is strictly a business decision. Okay. Ron is asking, how do GPs split the GP portion of the deal by skill set or responsibilities like capital raising. I'm going to go through all of this next weekend, Ron. Okay, I'm going to even show you a GP split worksheet. But if you want to, somebody want to give him a high level answer, we're absolutely fine with doing that. Just raise a hand if you want to answer this one.
Well, I could give it.
Okay.
Oops,
James
sorry.
James
Go ahead.
hasn't had a chance. Let me.
No, James, you haven't talked. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, no worries, Ed. Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, it is skill set, asset management, financial stuff. So whatever your skill set is how you're going to get compensated in the deal. And it's also the life cycle of the deal. It's not just the upfront side of the deal. So keep that in mind too, that you're part of the GP team throughout the whole deal.
Yeah.
And,
like anything else, you're compensated for the value that you bring.
Exactly.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, the way it's typically carved up, and again, I'm teaching this next weekend, guys, and you're crazy if you don't come for $47 freaking dollars, but that's another conversation. But here's the way a deal's typically carved. Whoever brings the deal gets a piece. Whoever handles the deal from contract stage to closing might get a little piece. There's whoever where the money is raised is going to get a piece. The risk capital will be a piece. Mm-hmm. Whoever is lending their resume to the deal, their net worth and liquidity might get a piece. There's a lot of ways it's carved up, which is why I provide a spreadsheet so you can calculate it. But we're talking very often, huge multi-million-dollar deals here. And of course, the asset management gets a piece, and that's typically the largest piece because that's going to last for years. That's the most amount of the work. The work really starts once you buy the asset. So that's how they're typically carved up, and those percentages can be all over the board. Phil is asking if anyone could speak to family offices, how to use one for an equity raise. And Steve, I guess you could probably, just because it's, private equity is similar to a family office. Do you want to chat about that for briefly?
Yes. It's funny, when I was first starting, Rod, we'd have conversations within the Warrior group, and you were part of these conversations at times, about being careful about only having like one large investor. But that one investor backs out of the deal, you're done. It's better to have a mix of a few people that are in it, larger tickets, and then some people, maybe you got a bunch of people in at 50 or 100. And that was great. I built a great business based on friends and family. But then we moved on. We wanted to do much larger deals. And so just last year, I had a deal. We had a family office putting in $12 million. That was half of the equity needed for the deal, for a 70% loan to value. And literally just before closing, the bank was starting to give us some trouble because interest rates had gone up so much. They didn't want to honor their interest rate that we had already locked. They couldn't fund it. Right? It was a lender, not a bank. So we had to go find a new lender, but that was going to push the timing of the close. The family office wanted to get closed before the end of the year. So they just backed out. And all of a sudden we're left with a $12 million hole. Right.
Wow.
So
I remember.
Yeah,
you were
I told you guys the story.
We talked about this. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that can happen. That was painful. We had to recover, find new investors, all that sort of thing. But in terms of approaching the family office, you have to have had lots of deals done, a good 10, 15 really successful, larger deals with solid partners. You have to have a great background. Otherwise, they're not even going to talk to you.
Right.
So it's just stepwise. You got to kind of build your way to it.
You're not there yet. That is the answer. But you will be, and I will tell you, I know somebody that's done a lot of family office work, and they like operators that stick in one geographic market as well, that ideally become vertically integrated, meaning they have their own construction team, their own management team, and they just stay in a very tight geographic market. That's something we've been talking about on our team with James and the rest of my team, is really honing more in geographically, because we're in Texas, we're in Ohio, Florida, Carolinas, Georgia, all over the place. And I think we're going to hone in a little bit. And that's been a real topic of conversation. So again, tomorrow we're going to talk about where to start raising money, where to find potential partners. We're going to talk about networking, how to network, how to prepare to network, how to build and nurture those investor relationships, how to build a brand, how to capture a wider audience, how to use social media, how to use search engine optimization, how to define your niche, and what to cover on that first investor call. So where do you start? Okay, and this is and starting is probably the hardest thing for most people. They don't know how to start. And I'm going to tell you, don't overthink it, okay? What you want to do is you want to start with the people you know, your friends, your family. That's where most people start, and that's fine. And so, that's the low-hanging fruit. And this low-hanging fruit dynamic comes into play in lots of different areas of this business. When I talk about low-hanging fruit, let me just sidebar for just a second. It also applies to where you're going to buy. And one of the things we talk about in my boot camp is creating your investment criteria. So you're, again, sorry about the analogy, but you're not shooting with a shotgun, you're shooting with a rifle, because there's a lot of multifamily property out there. So you got to figure out where you're going to buy, what size you're going to buy, what asset class you're going to buy, and hone that down as much as you can. And when I say low-hanging fruit, if you live in California, don't invest in Boston, or vice versa. Stay closer to home. So there'll be lots of examples of that in this business where you don't have to push the envelope because it's unnecessary. And the same thing here with investors. So go to family and friends. But let me say this to you, okay? And hear me right now. Do not go to family and friends if you are dabbling in this business, okay? Get your butt to my boot camp and learn this business, really learn it, especially if you're taking money from family and friends. You do not want those awkward Thanksgivings and Christmases if somebody lost their money. Ask me how I know. If you heard me yesterday, you know, I always say at my boot camps, ask me how I know, because I made every freaking mistake you can possibly make. And when 2008 and 9 happened, you know, I had my brothers in some deals and it sucked for a long time. I got to tell you, I mean, you know, I can't blame myself because countries went bankrupt then. You know, for those of you who know me, I lost $50 million then. But the point is, don't dabble. So if you shouldn't dabble anyway. If you're taking anybody's money, you should be studying this and learning it and aligning with people and that know the business and really doing it right is the bottom line. But you start there. So how do? You start and make a complete list of everyone you know, okay? And you need to use a CRM. I would not use Excel, although you could, but I wouldn't, because there are awesome CRMs out there. We're going to talk about those a little bit more in a minute. And I'll give you more examples of which ones I recommend personally. I'll tell you right now, the one I love is HubSpot. That's what we use. It's extraordinary. And they have a free version. But I'll give you some others here in a second. But that's how you get started. Okay, so start with friends and family. Now, where do you find potential investors? I tell my warriors this. Anywhere someone hangs out, you need to be there. Okay, and if they hold still long enough, they need to know what it is you do. Okay? And that's a quote. If they hold still long enough, they better know what it is you do. So church, you know, your kids' soccer games, you know, I'll tell you, health club. I met one of my largest partners. We had lockers next to each other in a health club. It was a cool health club where we had our names on little brass plates on the lockers, really high-end health club. But I met the guy just shooting the shit and did millions of dollars worth of deals together. You know, meetup groups, fantastic place to meet people. And I'm going to tell you, you can absolutely create your own. My warriors, some of my coaching students have created meetups. In fact, one of the largest groups of meetups was created by my warriors. And so, you know, go to your local meetups and see how they do it. Actually, if you ping me, I'll give you some feedback on how to do it myself. I've got a document I can give you. But the point is, you can absolutely do your own as well, even if you only start with 4 or 5 people. But I'm going to tell you, here's the thing. You know, social media hasn't been around that long, okay? And if you listen to my podcast, you know, you'll hear, you know, me talk to people that have 5, 6, 7, 10,000 doors, and most of them started pre-social media, and they all started with real estate investor club meetings or meetups. And so you don't need 16 million downloads or 50,000 people in a Facebook group. You get a couple hundred people together, and you're adding value to them. You'll be able to raise money. So just remember that. Okay, so like I said, Real Estate Investor Association meetings, REA meetings, any networking events, you know, Chamber of Commerce meetings, Toastmasters, things of that nature. There's these, what do they call it? Is it ENI groups? You know, these business groups where they allow each type of business in the group and they send each other referrals. So, you know, just get out there. And we're going to talk about how to do this and how to network here in a minute. And especially for those of you that are introverted and don't love it, I'm going to give you some great tools to use. But, you know, you can also do presentations to groups. You see this all the time. You especially see this in the financial services industry where you'll get a card in the mail that says, hey, free dinner at Ruth Chris. You know, you just got to suffer through an hour of our presentation. But even then, you know, if you find groups that you think could benefit from investing in multifamily, go talk to them. You know, it doesn't matter if there's only 20 or 30 people there. I sometimes go to local meetups here with 20 or 30 people in it, you know, and just to hone my speaking speaking skills, you know, just to become better so I don't fumble like I just did. And and I enjoy it. And so, but anyway, so these are all types of things that you can do to find potential investors. Okay, now let's talk about networking. Okay, now if you are introverted like I used to be, put me back on. Okay, if you are introverted like I used to be, what I used to do, true story, was I had a note card of questions in my back pocket, and I told myself 5 seconds of courage. And I'd walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm Rod, I don't think we've met. And then I would just start asking questions, okay? And if you haven't read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, read it, okay? Now you can take me off for a second because I want to go through these points here, thanks. So if you're introverted, that is a great way to get past it. Make a list of questions so you're not fumbling, okay? And if you're asking them questions, not only are you driving the conversation, but they're the ones doing most of the talking, and they think it's the greatest freaking conversation they've ever had. Now, here's what's important. And they talk about this in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie's book, is to have an incredible curiosity in that person. Don't focus on meeting everybody at that event and capturing the highest number of cards. Focus on deeper conversations with people. Okay, go ahead and put me back on. Okay, and then again, yes, you always follow up, but don't be the person, and again, this is me looking in the mirror saying this, don't be the person that's talking to somebody and looking over their shoulder or trying to answer that question or move on to the next person. And I'm the worst at it, okay, because my mind moves so fast, I just don't have the patience for it. And this is why, candidly, why introverted people are actually better communicators if they push themselves, because they are good at these deeper conversations. Extroverted people like me, type A squared people like me, it's much more of a surface communication initially. And so, but have deeper conversations because that's how you're going to get people to trust you and rely on you and want to do business with you, okay? If you don't love this business yet, if you're not sure if you love multifamily real estate investing, it's okay, okay? And I tell my students this, my warriors this. If you don't love it yet, you can learn to love anything. And there's a point to this, so hang with me here. You can learn to love anything. But I'm going to tell you, if you can't learn to love this, now what I tell them, you can learn to love it by associating it to hunting for buried treasure, because that's what you're doing when you're out there looking for deals. You can associate it to hunting for buried treasure. But if you can't learn to love it, for God's sakes, go do something else. Life is too freaking short. But here's what the big deal is. If you love it, you're going to be passionate about it. And if you're passionate about it, you're going to be able to influence people, okay? And of course, if you're passionate about it and you love it, you never work another day in your life because you're doing what you love and work is play. But that passion is super important. So again, you can learn to love anything, even exercise. I got a big exercise room down there and you can learn to love it. And in fact, I just got a cold plunge and I'm going to reassociate myself with learning to love that. In fact, I think I'm starting today. I had some surgery and I couldn't start yet, but I think I'm starting today. But anyway, this is me looking in the mirror. I got to learn to love that. But anyway, throw the PowerPoint back up, buddy. Okay, so this is how you get started. 5 seconds of courage, okay? And so before you start communicating or going to network at an event, you need to think about it. Don't just show up. Have a little pre-planning, okay? Make sure you're organized. You got to have the business cards for yourself, and set some outcomes. Maybe, do you know who's there? Is there someone you definitely want to meet? If there's a big hitter there that you definitely want to meet, do some research on that person, okay? Establish some goals for that event. How many people you want to have deep conversations with? Are you clear on what you can bring to the table? Okay, and even if it's just your passion and enthusiasm, how many connections do you want? What are your multifamily goals for the event? Are you looking to raise money, find deals, get referrals? Have you practiced your elevator pitch? We went through some examples of that yesterday. And if you didn't watch yesterday, go back and watch it. Okay, you don't have to stop this and go back and watch it. Do it later. But a lot of valuable stuff we went through yesterday. I hope you all agree, those of you that watched yesterday. And practice that pitch. Okay, have you listed ways that you can add value? Okay, and so in this business, because it's a team sport, there are several hats you can wear in this business. You can be the one that's out there finding the deals, building broker relationships. You can be the one that's raising money, investor relationships. You can be the one that does the underwriting if you're super analytical. Maybe you've got process experience, management experience, construction experience. Project management experience. You could be the asset management piece. Now I'm going to tell you, when you approach a team that you want to work with, and because I highly recommend you do that, that you approach a team that you want to work with. When you do that, if you can raise money or bring deals, you're in, okay? Those are the two biggest things, okay? So you're in the right place, I guess is my point. So again, have you done your research? Have you thought about how you can potentially add value to the people you meet? Have you researched who's expected to attend, the types of people that are going to be there, so you're not shell-shocked? Have you practiced what you're going to say? Maybe an icebreaker, like I said, the 5 seconds of courage. Hey, I'm Rod. I don't think we've met. Why are you here? What do you love about this place? Again, have a list of questions in your back pocket that you can, so you're not fumbling, you can review before you go talk to somebody. Are you dressed appropriately? This is one I struggle with because I don't care about it as much anymore. I stand in front of thousands of people a year in flip-flops, and I'm migrating to shorts even. So my point is, but is there a dress code? Should you be appropriate for that? I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know, you may not think it's funny. I think it's funny. I went to NMHC right before COVID, which is the National Multifamily Housing Conference, and there were 5,000 people there. And when I tell you that I'm the only one that didn't have a jacket, I am not exaggerating. I was in my black V-neck t-shirt like I always wear. Anyway, just as an aside. But dress code is important. You should take it more seriously than I do, especially if you're trying to build investor relationships. Okay, so some more questions about networking. And yeah, this is what I just talked about. Am I focusing on the person that I'm talking to, or am I scanning the room, which is super rude? And again, I'm horrible at this because my brain is all over the place. But super important that you give them your full attention. You know who's awesome at this is Tony Robbins. I've seen him do this because I worked with him for a while, and he is like totally focused on the person he's talking to the point where the rest of the world falls away. And I've seen him literally have a conversation with somebody for 30 minutes while 3,000 people are waiting in an audience. That's how seriously he takes it. And you should take it that seriously as well, because people feel so heard and so validated. They're like, my God, I love this person. When you're answering questions for them. So again, are you looking at your phone while you're talking to people? Super disrespectful, okay? And then am I really listening, or am I just listening to form a response, okay? And again, this is one I struggle with as well, but these are all, I know this is simple stuff, common sense stuff, but it's super important when you're building these investor relationships, okay? Am I being salesy or pushy? Am I going right into talking about deals, or am I being more personal, And I'm going to tell you, be more personal. And by the way, guys, it starts by building rapport. It starts by building rapport. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when you first meet someone, don't go right into some pitches or anything like that. Used car salesmen are at the worst at this, okay? When you meet someone, try to find commonality. Try to find a connection. Women are great at this. Men aren't so great. Women are like, oh, I love your top, love your shoes. Men can't do that. But, men can say, hey, how about those Broncos or something like that, But try to build rapport first before you get into any meaningful conversation. Now, listen up when I say this, okay? When two people are in rapport, truly in rapport, what's interesting is if you watch people that are in rapport, they actually start moving the same. If one person goes like this, the other person will go like this. If one person crosses their legs, the other person will cross their leg. They start breathing the same. It's fascinating if you study this like I have. But here's the bottom line. If two people are in rapport, whoever has the most confidence about the subject matter being discussed will always, always, always influence the other person. So remember, let me say that again. When two people are in rapport, really in rapport, whoever has the most confidence and expertise really about the subject matter being discussed, they will always influence the other person. Okay, so remember that. So rapport is critical. Okay. Oh, it's on the next slide. Boom. Am I trying? I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So, am I trying to build rapport? Find similar interests. Like I said, they find commonality. Anything, and it can be anything. It can be a pet. It can be the environment. It can be the speaker there. It can be the group. It can be whatever. Just figure out something that you agree on and find commonality. And and then, am I only talking about real estate? You shouldn't be. Go ahead and take me out of the corner. I'm only talking about real estate. Talk about other things. Talk about the weather, the interests that you have. Your family, their family, whatever. Be fun, be interesting. And again, if you love in this business, you're going to have passion and they're going to feel it. And people want to work with people that are passionate. Now here, this is super freaking important. The minute you're done with a conversation, before you go talk to anybody else, grab a pen and write notes on the back of their business cards so you remember them. And even better yet, take a selfie with them, okay? So you remember what they look like. And when you call them, you can ping up a picture. Hey, I don't know if you remember me. This is me. That is a ninja trick right there. Super good strategy where you take a selfie. And I know people that do this and they're masterful at it. Okay. Now, let me tell you, as another aside, go and put me up again. As another aside, there are people that I call super networkers. Okay. And you know who they are. They're the people that you meet that they discover what you want, and they are meeting other people and they connect you with people that have what you need. That's super networking. And boy, if you can do that, I can tell you, you're off to the races. I heard a conversation with a billionaire yesterday, actually, and this is a trigger. And somebody asked him what the secret to his success was, and he said, "Is my love and push and focus on networking." That was the secret to his success. So there you have it. That's why I'm spending some time on this. I already had this set up, but that's why how important this is. So again, take notes so you know who they are. Take notes so you can think about how you can help them. And if you can take a selfie, that's even better. Okay. Right. And then when you get back to your hotel room or home, immediately review your notes, add to them, enhance them, and review them one time so you don't forget anything, okay? Because you won't remember everything and you'll be moving fast in the heat of it. But add to those notes. And then what you do is you just reach out to anybody that added value to you, gave you referrals, did you a favor after the event. Of course, you're going to do that. And then after that, you're going to follow up with every single person you met, okay? That right there is the most important piece of this whole thing, is the follow-up. You have to follow up, okay? If you just collect business cards and hand out business cards and leave it at that, you haven't done a thing. Nothing. Waste of time, okay? It all relies and ends and lives and dies by your follow-up. By the way, if you're not hydrated, drink some water. If you're tired, drink some water. Typically, when you are tired, you're dehydrated, so I need some water. All right, so you follow up. Great meeting you. And then you set up a call. Hey, listen, I'd love to get on a call or a Zoom call and see how I can add more value to you, okay? And if you promise something and you feel, and you have any way to already add some value to them with some educational piece or some other thing, one thing I used to do, put it back on me, one thing I used to do when I would go to an event, I am incredible at taking notes, okay? I type like much faster than most people even talk, okay? I'm just a great typist. And so I take incredible notes. And I would always send my notes to the people that I met at an event. And I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of me with my arms out with all the lanyards around my neck, hundreds of events and boot camps and workshops that I've been to. And so, I do this a lot, and that was one way of me to add value to the people that were there that may have missed something, and they're always super grateful when I do that. And so, but again, it's all in the follow-up. It's all in the adding value. And again, why am I belaboring all this? Because this is how you're going to raise money, guys. This is it right here. It's building these relationships, deeper relationships, friendly relationships, adding value wherever possible, and following up. That's the secret to this whole thing. Okay, so now let's dig into the follow-up, okay? So how are you going to nurture these investor relationships? How are you, and I apologize for we didn't reposition these slides. We should have, because again, I presented this, I was on stage at my Warrior event. We probably should have had the right corner empty so that I didn't have to go back and forth like this. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you because it's so valuable and it's so timely right now. So How do you nurture those relationships? Of course, phone calls. Phone calls on a consistent, regular basis. Emails, newsletters. If you're buying in Kansas City, you should have a Google alert that any articles that show up on Kansas City, and certainly the positive ones, that you forward, you curate them. You have a swipe file, it's called, and you curate them, forward them to people that that you've met, and say, hey, this is why we love this market, whatever that market is, right? You can do group meetings. Okay, that's very common. In fact, we're probably going to be doing one in a couple of months for our investors, where we just meet and break bread and get to know each other and talk about what's going on. You can do webinars and PowerPoint presentations. We do that a lot. And with our investor relations, I spend time educating them. That's one of the things that I do. And so, you can do a PowerPoint presentation. Go ahead and throw me up, Matt. One of the things that, we have a lot of passive investors that invest with us, and our website is creecapital.com. Don't go look at it now because you'll miss stuff. But the point is, write that down, Cree Capital, so you can get an idea what a website should look like. By the way, we're completely redoing it, implementing a lot more video. So really, make a note to check it in about 30 days. So one of the things we do is we educate our investors, and you can do the same thing. The more you educate and add value, the more valuable you are, right? And so, one of the things we do with ours is we'll do behind the scenes stuff. Here's what's happening at the property. Here's what we did. Here's why we did it. Because some of our investors may want to become an active operator at some point. That's what I teach. That's what I do. And by the way, even if you're watching this and you're thinking you're just going to be a passive investor, get to my boot camp so that you have a basic understanding of this business. Why would you invest in anything if you don't have at least a basic understanding of what it is that's done? There you go. Thank you. You threw it up there. So if you're interested, right now you can come for $47. It's next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, so we don't kill the people in California, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it's $47. I don't sell anything there. You get my recordings of the event. You get my deal evaluator software, right? They get that. They get the document library. I mean, hell, those bonuses are worth freaking $10,000. You come for $47 freaking dollars. So listen. If you're interested in this business and you have not been to my boot camp, you are insane if you don't come, and if you can't make it, at least get the recording so you can watch it later, because people rave about it. I've had thousands of people attend, and the only complaint I ever get that the breaks are too short, because I do 15-minute breaks every couple hours. Trust me, they're harder on me than they are on you. But anyway, so educating your investors is nurturing those relationships. That's the best thing you can do, okay? All right, what's next here? All right, so now let's talk about, I don't know if I have any questions on that. That was fairly standard stuff. Okay, all right, thanks, Yahoo, let's go. Okay, no questions yet. All right, so that was pretty basic stuff, but it's important stuff. I hope you realize that, and I spent time on it because it's super important. People overthink this whole raising money thing. They think, oh, it's all about sales funnels and marketing and so on and so forth. No. It's about personal freaking relationships. It's about networking. It's about building solid relationships. That's the most important thing. So now let's talk about creating a brand. And you live in the greatest time on earth, like I said, to do that. It's incredible time to create reach. There's so many incredible social media options. So I would encourage you, pick one and go kick ass with it, okay? Facebook, LinkedIn, those two are incredible. Instagram, believe it or not, is incredible. And I will tell you, I didn't even have a chance to modify this too much for Chat GPT and the AI solutions that are out there. They're extraordinary. And we're just learning them ourselves. I mean, it's all brand new and it's like changing daily. And so I would encourage you, the more you can embrace that stuff and become better at it, it minimizes the amount of effort you put into things. Like I'm writing a piece today for my podcast. From my podcast about the importance of your mission. And I did it previously, and I threw it into ChatGPT and just completely reworded it and added things that were things that I had missed the first time. Like, man, this is incredible. And so, and it'll help you throw content out there to add value to investors, right? And so pick your vehicle, whatever it's going to be. I'm sorry, vehicle is wrong. Your platform is really what I want to say. Go ahead and throw the slide back up for me. So pick your platform. You can leave me off so they can see the whole list. I would not do TikTok personally, by the way. Okay, I don't know. I shouldn't say that because they do have evergreen stuff there now. They recently did start doing evergreen stuff. They weren't before. If you went on there and you did something, it was gone after you did it. But I think they do have recordings now, so maybe I shouldn't be so flippant about that. But I will tell you, there are lots of investors on Facebook, LinkedIn, believe it or not, Instagram, Twitter, of course. In Facebook groups, on YouTube, and so. Figure out, Twitter, podcast, Clubhouse, TikTok. Did I say TikTok? I meant to say, did I say? I meant Clubhouse, guys. I said TikTok and I meant Clubhouse. Although I don't think TikTok's worth it either. Do you? Matt handles my social. We're on the fence about TikTok and Clubhouse. I'm just going to tell you right now. But these other ones are fantastic. I would focus on one of the other ones first, candidly, because I want to help you create reach as fast as you can. But here's the thing. You want to think about how you might do this. And there are lots of ways to do it. And one of the ways might be to interview people. That's what I did on my podcast. You can literally fake it till you make it. Because if you're interviewing people in a meetup group, on a podcast, on a YouTube channel, things like that. If you're doing that, you're perceived as the expert because you're the one interviewing them, right? So it's extraordinary, and like I said, you're kind of acting as if you're faking it till you make it, which is a great way to do it. And I've got warriors that have started probably a couple dozen that have started podcasts. A couple of them are award-winning, and so podcasts, meetup groups. Start a YouTube channel and just start doing videos. And yes, the first few will be cringe. Trust me. Ask me how I know. I looked at some of the shit I did 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. But you get better and better as you become more comfortable. Now, maybe it's writing articles or taking an article and rewriting it and sending that in a newsletter or sending articles, like I say, to your list. Now, so pick the medium that you're going to enjoy, pick the modality that you're going to enjoy, whether it's video, whether it's audio, like on a podcast, although I would recommend you do both. If you're going to podcast, you do video and audio, or if you're just going to send out blog articles or regular articles. Okay, throw the slides back up for a second here. Okay, so pick your platform, and I would recommend you start with one. Now, can you take clips and throw them on all the other ones? Yes, you can use a platform like Hootsuite, that's one of them, isn't it? Where you can spread your stuff around all of them, but I would encourage you to focus on one. Don't try to be all things to all people when you get started. Okay, so here's the two most important pieces of this whole conversation about building reach, and that is, you got to be consistent and you got to add value. And I tell people, I counsel people on starting a podcast all the time. And if you want to start one, ping me and I'll help you, okay, on DM. But here's the thing, and this is the thing I tell you. Don't start it unless you're going to do it every freaking week, okay? Otherwise, don't even bother. And that goes for any of these other modalities and these other platforms. You got to be consistent. I can tell you, I think I've missed one podcast episode in a week when I was really sick. And I don't mean a little sick, I mean really sick. But since then, even if I feel like crap, I get my episodes out, okay? And that consistency is critical. And then, so consistency. Then the second thing on adding value. Yes, you can use ChatGPT, but if it sounds vanilla, if it's crap, you're gonna be perceived as crap. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth of it, okay? So put out quality content, put out real value, do your research, spend time on it. And I'm going to tell you, again, you don't need 16 million freaking downloads. You need maybe 100 to 200, ideally 1,000, honestly. But even if you just have a few hundred people that look forward to your content, that you're adding value to, my God, you'll raise the money you need to raise. I'm just telling you, okay? Super important. So take me off for a sec so we see the whole thing here for a sec. Okay, so when you are adding value, and by the way, it's called education-based marketing, guys. That's really what you're doing, is education-based marketing here. And so you build that credibility by adding that value and educating. And that's all I've done. I've written, I don't know, a dozen books that I give away. Some of them are on Rod's links, and sometimes I'll put them on the Facebook group and I'll say, hey, This is, we'll talk about property management and put the word management in to get that book. And then then we'll send you a link and we'll get your email address and maybe your phone number so that we build our list, you know, and that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to build a list. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But the most important thing you're trying to build is trust. And when you're educating and adding value, you're building trust. Okay. And so, you're ultimately going to need one-on-one relationships, but you start them through social media. And I can't tell you how often I've heard this when I get on the phone with like a new warrior or something, like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm actually talking to you. I've had your voice in my ear for years. And of course, I never grow tired of that. It makes me feel incredible. But that's the power of that, is the point I'm saying there, is the power. And you want to be perceived as an expert. And if you're supplying expert information, even if you curate it from an article that you get or you send the article, you're perceived as an expert. If you're interviewing someone on YouTube, on a podcast, or in any one of those places, and you're just doing interviews and interviewing an expert, like, you bring me in. I can't tell you how often I'm interviewed, probably a dozen to 20 times a month. I get interviewed, and sometimes I do it just to help somebody that's starting out. That's definitely my warriors. Anytime one of them asks, I'll go on a podcast, even if I'm the first episode. Typically, I like to see 1,000 testimonials. Reviews on a podcast before I go on, because time is all I have. But I try to help as many people as I can, and I'll help you too. Okay. So there's that. All right. So you need to create what's called a lead magnet or a lead generator. Okay. So what does that mean? That means something of perceived value, but it's got to not just be perceived value, it's got to have real value, okay? It can't just be a great headline that sounds good and then they get it and it's a piece of crap. It's got to be something good. And in fact, this was my first lead magnet. I wrote this book, took me freaking forever, because when I started my podcast, I didn't sell anything. In fact, if you listen to the first few episodes, I said, I'll never sell you anything, because I never intended to. I just wanted to add value. And now I'm a liar because I sell all coaching and courses and everything else. But and then people were asking for, hey, can you give us information? And I used to send people to one of my competitors to buy his courses and stuff. And then finally I'm like, okay, well, let me write a book. And so I wrote this book, and it's kick-ass. I'm going to tell you, it's awesome. And you can get the physical copy for like $6 or something on Rod's Links. But I gave away 20,000 copies for free, the PDF of it. So I got 20,000 email addresses, right? So that's what I'm talking about as a lead magnet. And you can do the same thing. Now, you don't have to write. I mean, this took me probably 2 years to write. I mean, it's really good. I'm bragging, but it is worthy. So, but you need to create something that allows, that's valuable enough for people to give you their information. And people hold on to their freaking email addresses. I don't know about you, but I'm probably at 400 or 500 emails a day right now, and it's maddening sometimes. And so, come up with something of quality that you can put out there, give away for free, and then if you start getting interviewed, you can use that as a lead magnet. We don't allow it on my podcast, but when I go on other podcasts, I'll mention lead magnets, and I even have a text code, like if you text Rod's Links to, is it links or Rod's Links? Just links? Just links. If you text links to 72345, you'll get a text back that says Rod's Links and has or if you text, management, you'll get my property management book. Or if you text GP questions, you get a list of questions. And it's a 5-digit code, 72345. That's expensive, by the way. It's easier to just do full phone numbers. But the point is, those are all lead magnets, okay? And you need to create something for yourself. Now, you could, but you can also, of course, write articles, curate articles, interview experts. We talked about that. You can have panelists answer questions. In fact, I'm on a panel, I think tomorrow. Yeah, I think tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'm on a panel tomorrow with a couple of heavy hitters to talk about what's happening economically on somebody else's podcast. So that's what he does. In fact, I remember doing a panel on that same show, single family against multifamily. And of course, we kicked their butts, but multifamily is better than single. I'm sorry, it just is, but for a lot of reasons. But the point is, you can do panelists. But any educational content you can put out there that adds value, you can use as a lead magnet and start collecting and start a list. And that's what you need to do. And don't overthink it. Just put something really quality together, and that's what you do. Now, you need to have some basic understanding of search engine optimization, okay? And it revolves around keywords. So you should research what keywords someone might search to invest passively in real estate. There's a lot of common sense component to this, but you can research this. By the way, where would they research? On Google AdWords? Yes. Oh, say on Google AdWords, you would research this. By the way, if I have time, I'm going to go into some of my creating reach course. I did a whole course on this. It's like $1,500 on my website. By the way, if you want it, I'll just mention this. You can have it for a third of that, like $400 or $500. But just DM me if you want the course. But I'm going to try to, depending on, because I might be moving a little quick right now. And if I get through these slides, I'm going to throw some of my slides from that course up and go through that with you. And we go through all of this in much greater detail. But you want to research keywords and you want to put them in your copy. Even if you're doing a video, you want to verbalize the keywords, because believe it or not, YouTube actually transcribes the videos, and the algorithms look for those keywords in your text. Okay, and so you can have ChatGPT write some of that content. You can say include these keywords, which is cool as hell. So you know, but this is the stuff you're going to have to learn to create reach. Okay. Investor meetup groups. I would encourage you to find all the groups that are in your backyard and go there. Meet the people, talk shop, okay? And again, we talked about this, you can create your own meetup group. It's not complicated. If you DM me, I've got a resource I can give you with some notes on how to do that. What does it say below that? We have what? I have an outline for this. Okay, yeah, perfect. So I'm happy to give it to you. But meetups are incredible. Why? For a lot of reasons, okay? Not just that you're making potential investor connections, but you're learning the business, you're talking shop, you're learning the verbiage, the nomenclature, so that you can speak about cash on cash and NOI and the DSCR and a lot of these acronyms. You know what all these things mean, so that you sound credible when you're talking to people. And the only way to do that is to have these conversations. So meetups are great for that, and to keep you motivated and be around people that aren't afraid of what you want. They want the same things you want. Peer group is important, guys, especially in what's coming. There's going to be a lot of fear. And I'll be candid. If you haven't done your goals recently, I would encourage you to come to my boot camp to do that. At least the first hour we do goals, because how do you get anything if you don't know what the hell it is, right? You need to know what you want. But if you can't make the boot camp for whatever reason, or you've already been, I did on Rod's links at the bottom is my goal setting workshop that I did on January 1st of this year. I think I did it on the 2nd this year, but I do it every year. It's got my goal. It's got a worksheet you can use. Do it. Get clear on your goals. Have your spouse do it. If your kids are 10 years old or older, have them do it. You know, people spend more time planning a freaking Christmas party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. And I'm going to tell you, super important right now, because there's going to be a lot of fear coming. You know, another bank's shutting down right now. Republic Bank is shutting down right now as we speak. Chase is trying to buy it. And so, you know, there's going to be more of that. They're coming. And the headlines are going to be scary. The news is not there to inform you. Never forget, the news is a commercial enterprise. They need to make money. They make money when they scare the hell out of you, okay? So don't lose sight of that. And that's why goals are so important, so that you're focused on what you want, not what you don't want. So you don't get sucked into all that crap, the politics and all the crap that's on there, which is mostly crap, just so you know. So you know, that you're focused on the good stuff and like the things that you want. So you're driven to do that. Super important, guys. So I can't stress that enough, especially in this period of time that we're going through. Get around people that want more out of life. Get clear on what you want. Get clear on your why, and that's how you're going to capitalize on what's coming. And I'm going to tell you, opportunity is coming. So you're in the right place. All right, let's throw the slides back up. All right, so we talked about meetup groups, a CRM. So let's talk about CRM, and you can leave it up for a minute, but then you can just put me up. So it is critical that you are consistent with your communication. So here are some examples. You can write those down: HubSpot, Insightly, Really Simple Systems, Zoho. I like HubSpot. There's also, what's the other one that some of the Warriors like? Oh, I can't remember. But anyway, you can Google CRMs. But it's critical that you are organized. Every business is nothing but people and systems, okay? And so the CRM is one of the systems, just like we checklist everything. One of the resources that's in Rod's links is my tool book, and it's got a kind of a checklist of all the things you would do when you due diligence a property. And we checklist everything, and we've greatly even enhanced that. But the point, it's a great starter though, and it's a great tool for you to start learning the business. But the point is, every business is people and systems. You hire the best people and you set up the systems. You've got to have a CRM, because that's going to remind you when you reach out to somebody. You're going to put notes if you talk to an investor and they said, hey, my wife's name's Helen. She's not doing real well right now. So when you talk to them in 3 months, you remember to say, how's Helen doing? Okay? You know, that's just an example. You're capturing those notes. It'll prompt you to put to-dos in and you'll calendar yourself to reach out again, and it'll track your emails and all your communication and all of that. Super critical. Now, of course, once you start raising money, you need a portal. And I wasn't going to get into that today because but maybe I should just briefly. If you're really ready to start raising money, you've got to have a portal. And I'm going to tell you the best one that I know out there. It's called Cash Flow Portal. So write that down. Now, if you mention me, you'll get a break, okay? But it's Cash Flow Portal. My Warriors get a deal, but if you mention me, you'll get a deal. But the point is, we've used more than one, and it's the best by far. So, but what is a portal? A portal is how you're going to track the money that comes in, and the percentages in that split when you do a syndication. It'll help you send out the K-1s. It'll help you communicate. It'll help you have them sign all the syndication documents. And again, we're going through all this next weekend, but I want to try to give you as much of a framework as I can as I'm talking about this stuff. Excuse me. So we talked about CRM. That's for the marketing. That's for the communication. The portal is it helps with the communication, but it's really to help get your documents signed, to help you track the money, help you present a deal, and to send K-1s and things of that nature. So it's more after the fact, okay? And if you've got questions about that, feel free to DM me on any social channel at any time, and I'm happy to answer questions about that moving forward. Okay, let's throw the slide. Okay, so CRM, you got to have a CRM. Okay, so let's talk about defining your niche. And so what do I mean by this? I will tell you, some of the most successful operators I've seen focus on different groups of people to raise money, okay? Like small business owners, like medical professionals, athletes, IT's huge, IT professionals. So think about what business you're in, and are there people that you're communicating with or associated with or are friendly with that have money, right? And one of the things that we do is we try to really define who our investor avatar is. It's called an avatar, and you can even name it. This fictional persona that exemplifies the type of investor you're going after. What do they like? What do they dislike? What are they afraid of? Where do they consume their information? Super important. And I will tell you, I just did and find their pain points. Because how are you going to get their attention? You're going to get their attention through pain, just like the news does. And I hate it because I hate the way the news operates, but that's the truth of it. And so, if you can identify what they're afraid of and their pain points and chat about that in your communication, you'll get their attention, okay? And then you add value, but you start by defining the pain points, solving the pain points through investing in multifamily. Like a pain point could be, is your money getting eaten up by inflation? Are your returns terrible on the stock market, or have you lost money in the stock market? That would be a pain point. don't know what to do with your money. The interest rates at the banks are a joke. These are all pain points. And so, these are the things that you focus on for your particular avatar, for your particular segment that you may be going after. Now, you could be a globalist and go after them all, but I'm going to tell you, some of the most successful people I see niche it down. I don't know how to pronounce that, but anyway, you know what I mean. And so, but again, get their attention with pain points, solve those pain points through investing with you, educate them, nurture them, continue to build on that relationship, and you're golden. One of the things you can do also is gifts. Like here's a gift. Put it on me, full bore. Okay, that says Cree Capital. These Yeti cups are fantastic. Now, I stole this idea from one of my warriors, one of my successful warriors. He was actually on a panel yesterday, Steve. I got one from him. I'm like, man, that is freaking cool because I love these cups. I mean, this coffee has been in here for 3 hours. It's still hot. And so, gifts like, now that's an expensive gift. So if somebody's invested 100 grand with you, it might be worth it. But even if it's, again, the more value you add, the better, right? I'm sure this makes sense. And, there's also something called the law of reciprocation. Okay, if when you give, people expect to give back, and so use that to your advantage. A great book you can read is Influence by Robert Cialdini, spelled Cialdini, and another one of his books is Persuasion. I met him in a mastermind, but a brilliant strategy around influence. Great books for you to read. Again, Influence and Persuasion. Let me just see if I got any questions. I mean, this stuff's pretty standard stuff, but what are some news sources for multifamily market updates? We just created a huge list of those. Kashif, DM me for that. Let me see if I can find that for you, okay? Yes, do Zoom live stream. Yes, better on Zoom. Yep. Looking forward to the next. Oh, thanks, Tracy. You're welcome, Javier. Is it possible to get the, yes, Kashif, just DM me and I'll hook you up. Okay, no other questions. All right, let's throw the slides back up. Okay, so find out as much as you can about who you're going after so that you can communicate in their language, in their pain, in their solutions, okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about the first investor call. And I'll tell you, you'll be scared, whatless, on your first couple of calls. And don't be, okay? Because again, you're just building a relationship. Now, one of the things we've done is as it relates to our business specifically, is we've documented all the questions we've gotten. And you should do the same thing, because if you ever pass it off to someone else, you'll know how to answer the different questions. Now, these are specific to us, like how long we've been doing it, deals we've done, full cycle, but you're going to want to be able to answer questions about whatever team you align with or team you build, the experience level, and so on and so forth. So take the time to think about the types of questions you might get. Now, write this down. GP questions. Text, don't do it now, but text GP questions to 72345, and you will get a list of questions that we tell people to ask if they're going to invest with somebody. And so that'll give you a great idea of the things you might get asked, okay? So write that down, GP questions to 72345, and we'll get that to you. But create a list of questions that you might get. But here's the things you want to ask them. So what are their investment goals? If they're used to putting money in an IPO where it's in and out in a year, this is not the investment for them, right? If they're going to need money for their kids' college in 2 years, this is likely not the investment for them. And be careful with this, guys. Even if you think your business model shows you getting out of an asset in 2 or 3 years, don't do that to somebody unless you're certain, okay? I would likely tell people it's going to be 5 to 7 years. And that way you're safe and you're not pissing people off. Now, let me say one other super important thing to you as it relates to investors, okay? You want to always underpromise and overdeliver. I can tell you, if you tell somebody they're going to get 8% and they get 8.1%, they're thrilled. If you tell them they're going to get 8% and they get 7.9%, they're pissed, okay? It's that stupid, okay? So I encourage you to always underpromise and overdeliver, because if you get somebody their money back and their returns I hate to say it like this, but the bottom line is you own them, okay? They aren't going anywhere else, and they'll tell everybody they know, okay? So performance is super important. And so you got to ask them, when do they need their money back? If they need their money back, and just get to know them a little bit. Where do you come from? What have you done? What do you do for a living? And of course your investment goals. And if they're interested, have them fill out a questionnaire to get more information about them. But here's another super important point. If they're an ass, sorry, but if they're a real jerk, don't do business with them, okay? Because managing your investors is harder than managing the property. And if you get somebody that's a jerk, you're gonna live with them for 5 years. Life is too freaking short, guys, okay? If they're a jerk, just next, just don't do it. Trust me, believe me, ask me how I know. Trust me on that one, okay? So really pay attention to their personality. If they're asking questions, fine. But if they're a pain in the butt questions and they're continual and they're gonna be a pain to deal with, just don't do it. It's not worth it. So I know you want the money bad, but trust me, if they're a pain, it's not worth it. Very, very important. But get to know them, build rapport, get to know them, add value to them, and you're off to the races. I'm going to show you a little bit of my social media. This is not to sell the course. I don't care if you buy it or not, honestly. But I'm going to, it's something I did for my warriors. I give it to my warriors, but I threw it on my website. If somebody wants to buy it, they can buy it. And if you do want it, what's it on there for? Can you look for me without crashing anything? I'll give you a great deal if you want it. So let me mention that real quick. What's it on there for? Is it $1,500 or? It's $24.95. All right, if you want it, I'll give it to you for $500. Okay. All right, I didn't know we were selling it for that. But if you want it, I'll give it to you for $500. But anyway, these are some of the slides from that, okay? So I'm going to blow through this fast because I've got panelists that are going to come on in about 15 minutes or so. Is that right? Yeah. So let me go through some of this. And I'm going to do this fast, but I talk about can you push me to the side any? Oh no, that is all the way to the side, isn't it? Okay, no worries. I'm going to talk about how to do what you need to do in every one of these platforms, and I'm going to blow through the most important ones. Or the first couple are really. I'll try to get to the most important ones as fast as I can. So we're going to talk about Facebook first. So there's lots of different things you can do in Facebook. You can do lives. I go live in Facebook all the time. You can do a poll to get to create engagement. What you want to do is create engagement, okay? You should have a posting schedule where you're posting every day or a couple times a day. You can throw videos in there. You can put text in there. If you look at my Facebook page, you'll see quotes that I put in there. You'll see videos that I put in there. You see lives. You'll see all of this stuff, okay? You can also use Messenger to create engagement. You can also create a group. Okay, so when I'm talking about text, it's best to do that once a day. And that helps you build followers. And you can use inspirational and motivational sayings that people just glance at in the morning. And so text is an important mix-up because most of it's images and video, and you throw a text up there. And I'll tell you, sometimes we get more text engagement from text than anything else we do, believe it or not. Again, I'm blowing through this fast, guys, because I want to get as much of it to you as I can before we bring my panelists on to answer questions. If you got questions, throw them up there. If you got questions about raising capital, throw them up there, okay? And if you're on YouTube or Instagram, go over to Facebook. Go to Rod's links. Click on that link at the top. Is it the same link?
It's the Facebook link.
Oh, click on my Facebook link in there. If you're on YouTube or Instagram, click on my Facebook link at Rod's links and get in there and watch me so you can ask me questions, okay? Because I can't do them on Instagram. So if you've done one there, I apologize because I can't see the phones because I'm sitting here. Okay. All right, so we talked about text. Audio. Okay, now if you start doing interviews like podcast interviews or YouTube interviews or any interviews of any kind, and you record them, for God's sakes, throw them on Facebook. Okay, and they create, of course, and if you're interviewed yourself, oh, absolutely. If you're on a podcast, for God's sakes, get it all, pull clips out and throw them everywhere, including Facebook here. Okay, you can do short educational clips. If you take a look, I think there are probably more of those on my TikTok, but if you take a look at my TikTok, which I've actually turned off on my phone because I get sucked into it too much. But if you take a look at my TikTok, you'll see where I do little like 1-minute clips just to try to add a little bit of value. And I'm just trying to give you guys ideas, okay? Of course, video, no question. There's me and my friend Matt right there, and so it shows who you're collaborated with. It gives you social proof. Do your own. If you do your own interviews, put them on there. If you get interviewed, put them on there. Both of that. Okay. Talked about you can do selfie videos. And by the way, guys, don't think you have to have a professional setup like I've got here. I mean, I've got numerous cameras and lighting all over the ceilings and a thing screen I can write on back there and a whole, audio visual setup up there. You don't need this crap. Do it on your freaking phone. People like that. They like that personal touch, okay? And my team's always telling me, do more freaking phone selfie videos. I'm just not one of these guys that can, hey, this is what I'm having for breakfast. This is what I'm working out now. I can't do it, but some of you guys will love it. Do it because it creates engagement and people love that stuff. I just don't have the patience for it. But anyway, but you can, okay? But selfie videos are awesome. Again, another thing is newsjacking. Let me talk about newsjacking for a minute. So anytime something major happens in the news, you can do what's called newsjacking, where you speak to it and it's being followed heavily. Like right now it would be the Republic Bank closure. I should probably go out and do a freaking video on that. My team would love that. But it's called newsjacking, where you take a relevant current piece of news and you speak to it. You'll see it all the time where somebody will have a TikTok video and they'll show the original video of what's going on and they'll be talking off to the side or making facial expressions or whatever to create reach. And you can do the same thing. Now, let me give you one word of caution, and I'll give you some super examples of newsjacking. I don't know if you guys remember when those miners got trapped underground for like a month or some crazy long time. I forget, it was in a Latin American country. They got trapped. And Ray-Ban made a brilliant freaking move, okay? They shipped like whatever it was, 80 pairs of sunglasses, Ray-Ban sunglasses down there because they knew they'd need them when they came out of the cave. And every one of those miners was wearing a Ray-Ban pair of sunglasses when they walked out. And that was like, actually it wasn't 80 people, but it was an $80 million is what they think they made from that newsjack. I don't know if you remember when the Super Bowl played and it died like our presentation did today. The Super Bowl did. So I guess that makes me feel better about us, Matt. But the Super Bowl literally blacked out, right? And Oreo within minutes posted, you can still dunk in the dark. Okay, is that freaking brilliant? Okay, so that's called newsjacking, where you throw a tweet up or you just jump on something that's trending. Highly recommend that. Now, but here's one word of caution: if it's something negative, like a shooting or anything like that, I would probably avoid it because you can get wrapped into something negative. Just be very, very careful with that. Okay, but anyway, hope that helped. Okay, so newsjacking. Let's see, images. Okay, so again, if you can see that top picture where I talk about all the boot camps that I went to. I don't know if you guys can see that on the top screen there. Tiffy and I, with all the boot camps and masterminds that I've gone to, and all the lanyards around my neck, and some of the books. I mean, that's like I have literally thousands of books, but we threw some books out there too, because that's my education. I never went to college, but things like that. That's a picture. Believing in yourself. That quote. You know, you can grab pictures that don't have costs, that don't cost anything online, and put a quote on them, and it grabs attention. You know, bold lettering, make it real colorful. Things in your personal life. You can even share painful moments. Okay, you see that on Facebook. Sometimes I think it's a little overdone, but if it's something sincere, if you write a really sincere explanation of something that happened to you that was dramatic and painful, especially if there's a message in it, incredibly powerful. You know, so again, people want to see who you are personally as well. Now, again, this is to create reach, guys. I know we're talking about raising money, but this is all part of that. Don't be afraid to share personal pictures. You know, with me, you pretty much know what you got. In fact, probably the word that's used to describe me the most is authentic, because, you know, unfortunately, I don't have much of a filter and I just say it how it is. And I would encourage you to be yourself, okay? You know, you see these guys leaning up against a Lambo and the houses and the cars and the boats and all that stuff. And you know, a lot of it's complete BS. And candidly, in my opinion, you're not going to get investors that way. Let me just tell you that right now for sure, okay? But just be you. Just be you. People want to see you. And when you're communicating with them, if you're not genuine, people can tell. Remember how I told you yesterday, when you're getting into a partnership, trust your gut. If you're not being genuine, their gut's going to go, something's off here, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. Remember I said yesterday, your brain is so freaking powerful, it can pick up on these micro nuances that you're not aware of consciously. And if something doesn't feel right, your brain is going, hey, something's off here. And if you are not being you, that's what they're going to feel, okay? So the good, bad, the ugly, you know, just be you, and don't be embarrassed of being you. And people will respect that. They'll feel your genuineness, they'll feel your authenticity, and they're going to want to be around you, because that's what people want to be around, is people they can relate to. So don't feel like you have to put on this big persona, okay? Don't do that. The more real you are, the more successful you're going to be. In fact, one of the panelists yesterday, I don't know if he's coming back on today, he's obviously watching because he mentioned he saw it on Zoom, Ed, the most down-to-earth guy you'll ever freaking meet. Former drummer, long hair, beautiful human being, incredibly successful in the multifamily real estate space. And he's just the most genuine guy you'd ever meet. And that's what I'm talking about here. You need to do the same thing, okay? Throw the PowerPoint back up. Okay, all right. When you do a description on an image, brevity is helpful, okay? And again, dinner with Tiff, I avoid this. In fact, I did take a picture with Tiff last night at dinner, but you know, I sometimes throw her up just because she's so freaking hot. It gives me social cred. but the bottom line is, I can't do the everyday stuff. But if you can, and you're okay with that, you'll build a great following of people that want to see what you're up to. So we talked about this. You know, just whatever you're doing around. I think he put this up here for me more than you guys on there. That's right. That's funny. Matt wrote that out. All right. Let's see. Before, during, ADPI. Okay. No. What is that? Okay. You can do a poll. Okay. You can ask questions. That creates engagement. That's very powerful. It's been overused a little bit, but if you've got a really good question, like a thought-provoking question, you'll get a ton of people that they even suck me in sometimes, okay? So, you know, if you do scroll social media and you see a good question, capture it and use it a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever. So capture. By the way, the best ideas, guys, are sometimes the ones that are emulated. There's no original thought out there. It's all been emulated. So don't be afraid to capture stuff. If you see somebody that does a kick-ass job with any part of this, like their emails that they send out, like their newsletters that they send out, I've got a whole swipe file where I'll just take an email and pull it down. And that's just an incredible library of ideas and options for you. And you need to do the same thing, okay? Capture this stuff. So that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time is my point, okay? And so yeah, polls are fantastic. Ask questions. What does it say on the bottom part of that? Okay, and that's the other thing. Depending on how they answer a question, you may have the ability to start a conversation. Now, we've been very successful where we'll give away a freebie of some sort of book. And then, you know, I've got a couple of people on my team that will start a conversation in DMs and say, hey, is there anything else we can help you with? You know, is there another resource that you need about the business? Do you listen to Rod's podcast? By the way, we got a boot camp coming up, you know, stuff like, so you can create it, but you can do the same thing with investors. Hey, you know, I saw you got my lead magnet. Have you invested yet? And just start a conversation, and don't sell them, build a rapport and build a relationship. That's been very powerful for us, by the way. And you can do the same thing. Are the panelists here? Three of them? Okay, we'll wait just another minute. Okay. Yeah, this is one I fail at. I try to go live every Wednesday night, and I miss a lot of these because like I'm just wiped out sometimes. But I am going live this Wednesday. I'll probably do an Ask Me Anything again or something like that. I teach something, but Facebook Lives are fantastic. But obviously you've got to build up your courage in some cases. Build up your what it is you're going to talk about, have some notes, be ready to talk about this. And I prepare for most of my not for my Ask Me Anythings, but when I'm teaching something, I prepare, I script things out, I do bullet points or I do a PowerPoint or something like that so that, so it's well thought out and it's a quality piece. Now, that said, you can definitely do a live from your freaking phone and ad lib it. I mean, there are people out there that are fantastic at that. Grant Cardone is probably an example of that. And I like to have a little prep work first, but do we have any questions coming? You guys got any questions about raising money? Okay, Dave, you should attend Rod's boot camp. Oh, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that, brother. Okay, very helpful. Thank you. Okay, we got some questions here. Okay, go ahead and let's pull the panelists up. I hope that some of that social stuff helped. I only got through some Facebook stuff, but hope that added some value to you guys.
What's up, Rod?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
How's it going?
Yeah,
hey, Rod.
Good to see you. Who else we got? Noel, Eric. Okay.
Hi, Rod.
And keep an eye out if there's someone else popping in later.
Haman's on his way.
Who is?
Haman.
Ahmad? Okay, wonderful. Let me turn this up a little bit. I'm not hearing you guys great. Okay. Hey, we've got 3 of my kick-ass warriors on right now, and I'm gonna ask them questions. But let me have them. If you guys could self-introduce, because I didn't have your stats in front of me. Forgive me. This is a little more ad hoc than normal. So we'll start with Shannon.
Hi, Rod. Thanks so much for having me on. I am Shannon Aronson. I live in New Jersey. I've been in Rod's program since July of last year. And thanks to all the great support I received from the program, I am just shy of 300 doors since I started the program.
And how much have you raised? Because I remember we talked about that at the Warrior event. I was so shocked by how much you'd raised.
Yep. In 5 months, I raised $5 million.
Boom. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. You are perfect for this presentation. Noel.
All right. Hey, Rod, thanks again for having me. It's great to be on here.
Are you out of country or out of town, or where are you?
I am. Yeah, I'm living in Austria. So
wow,
it's pretty awesome to have a team. We're able to divide those duties up and allows a little bit of freedom. So it's great.
Sure.
A little bit about me. I joined the Warrior program in January of 2020, right before COVID. Obviously a slow year, but formed a team, and we're now at, a total, I'm at 533 total units, combined with some RV mobile home pads as well. Total raised across the team on those deals, 13 million. And
wow.
It's been an awesome ride.
Awesome. Glad you're here, buddy. Thanks for staying up for us. Hamad, can you hear us yet?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, hey, buddy. Yes, hey, sir. Hi. Glad you're here, buddy. Hey, we started a little bit early because I ran out of slides and I just wanted to start taking questions. But I just having you all introduce yourselves because I don't have your stats in front of me. So if you would just tell everybody who you are, maybe when you joined the Warrior program and where you are to date.
Sure. I joined the program in June 21, and today I'm at 980 doors GP and joint ventures only. I have, I put my money as in my deals, and that's how I could get a lot of investors, gaining their trust too. I have raised around 9.5 million so far personally. Wow. Through retail investors, and I've also have some relationships with family offices and large equity groups through which we are doing some other deals.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's right.
Last but not least, Mr. Upchurch. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Eric Upchurch. I'm in California. I do not invest in California. Most of my assets are on the East Coast or the South. Between multifamily storage and student housing, approaching 5,000 units as of next week. We have a big storage deal we're closing, but still closing a lot of multifamily, and we're excited about what's coming up. Collectively, we've raised tens of millions, and I'm over the last 5 years, I've been involved in a couple $100 million assets under management. I've been with Rod for 5 years now.
Has it been 5 years? Holy cow. Well, listen, thanks guys for coming here on a Saturday and sharing your knowledge. Really grateful.
I got a doubleheader baseball game after this, Rod. So this is
okay. All right. We'll hurry up here. All right. All right.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right. All right. So, Paul asked, what is the going average price for an SEC attorney to handle fundraising for a syndication? By the way, just raise your hands when you want to answer something. I mean, I could answer that one off the top of my head, but does anybody? Go ahead, Eric. You did first, and then Noel.
Yeah, I'll just say an SEC attorney isn't going to help you raise funds, but they are going to help you structure the deal. And you could expect anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 in SEC attorneys fees, and then you're going to have transactional attorneys fees on top of that as well. But that's all money that you're going to raise from your investors, and be very transparent with that. So you don't have to worry about that piece necessarily. Now, if you're going to raise money, have somebody raise money for you, that's called a broker dealer. We don't need to get into that part of it. It's totally different. Rod can talk about it if he wants to. But
did you talk about? I'm sorry, I was reading something that Matt threw out. Did you talk about what they charge?
Yeah, I said between $10,000 and $20,000, just depending on who you're using. Yeah.
Anything to add, Noel, or is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah, we had about $15K for the attorney we used just for the SEC attorney, and of course, as Eric mentioned, the transactional attorney is additional as well.
Correct. But again, you're raising the money to do this stuff, guys. Keep that in mind. Okay. Catherine asked, questions in docs from boot camp. I don't understand the question, Catherine. Can you elaborate on that a little bit in another question? But let me just say this. By the way, guys, if you're new or just getting here, my boot camp's next weekend. You can come for $47. I don't sell anything there. You get my document library. You get our new deal evaluator software, which is kick-ass, and you get the recordings. I mean, you guys don't know the deal I'm giving them because you paid a lot more than that. I mean, I'm just trying to get as many people into this as possible because I think incredible opportunities coming. So if you want to come, go to Rod's links, use the code WORKSHOP, and you can come for $47. And if you can't make it, you can even have the recordings. Kind of a no-brainer. Okay, Paulo, what is the normal split in profits when I do everything, find it, fix it, sell it, and the investor is putting in 50% of the money? Well, okay, every deal is different, Paulo, but if somebody wants to take a stab, that's kind of a joint venture deal is what he's asking about. Does somebody want to address a joint venture deal? Go ahead. And then Hemant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so really a joint venture is, that can be arranged however the parties agree on. If you have someone that's bringing all the money and you're doing all the work, you can come up with, okay, we'll do a 50-50 split, or maybe it's a 70-30, whatever it is. Whoever, it's very flexible. Right. As long as
there's no one size fits all. Yeah, there's no one size fits all is probably the answer to that question. Anything to add to that, Hemant?
The other thing that I would definitely like to add is the way the terms and conditions come in, especially if you have somebody who puts in a lot of money. If they don't have experience, they're going to come with some terms and conditions. I'm doing a $10 million joint venture deal in Cincinnati, where I am right now. And the person who's putting in 95% of the money, he has some terms and conditions. He has some performance-based criteria, a lot of things that you need to discuss it across the table. So like Rod said, one size doesn't fit all. And at the same time, you have to make sure that, your all concerns are addressed. All risks are evaluated, discussed upfront, and then the splits automatically take shape.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Go ahead, Shannon.
Well, I really liked earlier in the program, you touched on how you make sure you bring value. And I think whenever you're going to partner up with somebody, you want to try to make sure you're bringing as much value as possible, whether that's the deal or how much money you can raise, and you're going to be able to negotiate better splits.
That too. That's exactly right.
One more thing, Rod, can I?
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. Could I actually have one more thing to that too? That just want to highlight is, if you're doing that, if someone's bringing purely money into it, they cannot be completely passive investors unless that's registered as a security. So that's a huge part there. If that hasn't
I
already been
belabored
touched
that
on.
yesterday. I belabored that
Perfect.
yesterday. Thank you for bringing it up. I will do it again right now. You cannot just be a money raiser unless you have a series license. Okay, you have to be active in the deal. Okay, super important. That means you're there for the due diligence. Ideally, you're active in the asset management calls. You're communicating and adding value in the asset management calls. You're recording those asset management calls to document that. You're maybe you're involved in some of the CapEx projects, but you're active in the deal besides just raising money. Thank you, Noel. I talked about it yesterday, but for those of you that are watching now, but let me just say this. If you're doing a joint venture, and again, we go into this in a lot more detail next weekend, but if you're doing a joint venture, everybody has to be active. So don't show me a joint venture with 10 freaking people in it, because that's BS, okay? That's just not happening. It's not reality. I would say the maximum in a joint venture will probably be 5, but because if people aren't active, you have to syndicate, okay? So in a joint venture, you can be active, and I mentioned this yesterday. I did lots of joint ventures, mostly on single family stuff when I was in my 20s, but literally millions and millions of dollars worth, 50-50. I put up the money. I'm sorry, I didn't put up the money. They put up the money, forgive me. They signed the debt, and I did all the work. And we split everything 50-50. It was a match made in heaven. And you can do that today. But and that's where that question came from, I'm sure, Paolo. But every one of those is negotiated. All right, next question. Okay, and this ties right in, Paulina, to what we were just talking about. What % should you charge for raising money? You cannot do it that way, okay? You have to add value to the team. And yes, you will get allocated a certain percentage for what you raise, but you have to do more than just raise the money. And what we talk about, and what Merrill will talk about next weekend, who's the SEC attorney that's going to speak on an hour on syndication, is the suggestion of using what's called an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that outlines who's doing what in that syndication ahead of time, so that you don't have an issue with this particular scenario where you can't just be a money raiser. So, but I will tell you that in our GP splits, we will typically allocate about 30% of the GP to the equity piece, to the money that's brought to the deal. So if we're raising $100,000, well, I can't do the math in my head, but basically we're allocating 30% of the general partnership to the money that's brought to the deal. That's our typical scenario. There's a lot more pieces to that. Don't just run with that. And again, Paulina, you should definitely be at my boot camp next weekend. What is the amazing upcoming opportunity I keep mentioning? Dude, Todd? Everything's going on sale, brother, okay? Everything's going on sale. I'm just telling you, that's the opportunity, okay? Republic Bank shut down today. Office building sold in San Francisco for 20% of what it sold for 5 years ago. There's a ton of multifamily that's going to have problems. And everything, that's the opportunity. It's going to be an incredible opportunity to buy property. Okay. John, I'm brand new, going to boot camp. Wonderful. Should I start thinking of my niche and making a list now? Absolutely start making your list now. Dang it, I hit the button and it scrolled me all the way up. Bear with me, guys. I'm sorry. Too many questions. Okay, here we go. No, start making your list of people you can reach out to right now. Joan, start making your list of people you can reach out to right now. Okay. I'm completely new to mom. Okay. Okay. Javier, you're asking how to get started in this journey, the boot camp next week. Okay. Okay, here we go. Abraham, and I'll let you guys answer this. I'm currently an investor and I focus mostly on BRRRRs, which is buy, repair, refinance, repeat. At the moment, I have 5 properties I'm working on that will help me net $5,000 a month on 4 properties of rent. I do want to get into commercial multifamily if I sell these so I can walk away. Should I keep them or use that to go into multifamily properties? Should I keep those properties or use the money to go into multifamily? Who wants to take that one on? Opinion. It's an opinion. Go ahead, Eric.
Opinion is, I used to BRRRR. I BRRRRed about 10 properties. And my opinion is, get out of that stuff and get into multifamily. Invest in yourself, invest in education, invest maybe as an LP in a deal to learn, as a limited partner or passive investor in a deal, and just learn, because as Rod said, no better time than now to be ready to buy what's coming.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, if you listen to my podcast enough, one of the questions I love to ask when I remember, and I ask it not so that 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 you hear it from me. I ask it so you hear it from other people. If you could go back, and I'm asking people to have thousands of doors, and they all started with single family. Almost every single one of them started with a house or a duplex. And I ask them, what would you do if you told 18-year-old self what to do? And it's always go bigger, faster. So I'm trying to shorten the learning curve, or Eric is by what he just said. Okay. Wayne, you'd love to hear a sample breakdown of a deal where you're borrowing 70% and raising capital for 30% deposit required. Okay, we will go into that in great detail next weekend, Wayne, so just come, okay? Trust me, it's too complex for me to do right now. Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Rod, while you're looking, can I just back up to the other question about the people that haven't started yet?
Yeah.
I know you said, start building your list, but I think people underestimate the importance of how you really need to be fundraising before you have a deal. It's so much easier to talk to people about what you're doing before you're actually asking them to open up your checkbook.
Speak to that for a minute, please. Speak to that.
So when I knew that I'd been an LP for years and years. And when I knew I wanted to make the jump, I kept saying to somebody that was sort of a little bit of a mentor to me, but I don't have anything to sell. How do I know how much I'm going to be able to raise? And he kept saying, do a mock webinar, just get excited, talk to people about what you're doing. And what I've found, one of the best ways to raise money, if I'm with somebody that I know actually has some discretionary money to raise, I don't even ask them. I start telling them how excited I am about these deals and how much money I'm making and how I'm killing it. I don't even ask. And then the next thing you know, in about 5 or 10 minutes, they'll be like, well, do you need investors for that? So I think if you can just talk about it and get excited, the mouse will come find the
guys, I hope you write that one down. That was freaking brilliant. I hope you write that one down. Remember I talked about passion, guys? Remember I talked about how important passion is? There's a great example of it at work, okay? When you're passionate about what you do, you're excited about what you do, people want to work with you. But using it in that framework where you're excited about the money you're making on deals or hope to make on deals, people want to know about it.
Shannon probably uses this often, but it's the question, if you know anybody who is interested, let me know. I'd love to talk to them. Like that makes people think, well, I'm interested. What about me? It makes them get a little FOMO.
Yeah, I always say, listen, I'm always looking for partners. If you know anybody that might be interested, I'd love to talk to them. And then of course you want them to say, yeah, I'm interested, and they very often do. Kashif, I've taken many multifamily courses, took Rod's boot camp last year. Got to say it has the best and latest relevant. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that, my friend. Okay, raise my confidence level. Good. I joined the boot. Thanks, Terry. You're going to love it, buddy. Okay, join the boot camp already. Do I have a referral for an FCC attorney in Orlando? Do you mean SEC, Lewis? I'm sure you mean SEC, not FCC. Confirm that you're looking for a syndication attorney, Lewis. Ask the question again, please. Yes, and again, I have one speaking at my boot camp next weekend if it's an SEC attorney. Okay, Wayne asked, Eric, is the reason you don't invest in California more to do with the state laws than the opportunities available?
It's all of the above. I don't like compressed cap rates. I don't like the tenant laws. So yeah, I'd rather cash flow out of state and have an easier time executing a business plan.
I talked about this yesterday, and I get some hate for this, but I won't invest in a blue state. Life is too freaking short, guys. The regulations are ridiculous. The taxation is ludicrous. They keep adding taxes. Don't get me started, about, their incredible deficits in their budgets because don't get me started. But why would you invest somewhere if you can invest somewhere where it's much easier, where you don't have to worry about rent control, you don't have to worry about these regs? That's my thing. It's just, for me, it's a business decision. Okay, that's a good question. Jim Volner. Hey, everyone. I'm interested in learning about the value-add programs you've incorporated into your multifamily investments. Could you share some insights into the types of projects you've tackled and how they've impacted the bottom line? So a success story. Who wants to go first? Nobody's raising their hand? You guys don't want to brag? Go ahead. Hemant raised his hand, then Eric did. Okay.
Yeah. So apart from renovating apartments, raising the rents to the market rate, some of the common things that we do is, parking spots, preferred parking spots, something that I learned from Rod Steele actually in San Antonio, and we have been started implementing that in some of my properties. The laundries, the washer and dryers in the apartment, that adds to your bottom line very quickly. The pet fees, application fees, that adds to the bottom line. And nowadays we are focusing a lot on open areas where we can get dog parks or playgrounds for kids. So those are some of the things that add to the bottom line very quickly.
Yeah. That's a great example. Eric's got a good one. Talk about your trash thing.
Oh yeah. So ultimately you want to increase the net operating income. That's how your valuation of the property.
It's the net
is.
income, guys.
So,
don't get too wrapped up in net operating, but it's net
the
income on the property.
So revenue minus expenses, right? So you want to increase your revenue, like Hemant was talking about, or you want to decrease your expenses. So one thing we did was we looked at the trash contract. So you can look at all your contract services, and it was $1,200 a month. We found somebody locally who could do it for $600 a month, same service. That increase in or decrease of expense, increase in net income, increase the value of the property by $102,000 immediately. It's an instantaneous value add. You can also do on nicer assets that Rod buys. You can do trash valet. If people don't want to take their trash to the dumpster, you can charge $5 or $10 a month. There's also technology packages. You can put Nest thermostats and USB outlets for, $10 to $15 a month that tenants will pay for as well. We also are buying an asset that has 2 cell towers on it and 2 billboards on it. So you look at the area to see if you can add stuff to it that's going to add to your bottom line. Additionally, one of the assets we just bought in Columbia, South Carolina, has a large enclosed pergola type thing. And one of our leasing office is currently occupying a unit that we could rent. So now we're going to enclose that pergola. We're going to enclose that pergola and have the leasing office in there and then start renting out the unit. So you really just eyes on, look at everything you can do and execute some interesting
Perfect. Yeah, just to give you another example, Hemant was talking about the example for the parking lot spaces. If you haven't heard me talk about that, 296 unit asset in San Antonio, we numbered the parking spaces and said, hey, park by your unit, $25 a month. We had over 100 people take it. And at the cap rate at the time, that was an $800,000 increase in value. Okay. All right. Dasha
I can add one more on that one as well.
Yeah, bud.
On the, as far as the expenses go, one of our properties was a mid-70s build. And being that old, there's oftentimes, older piping, older fixtures. We had a company go in and put in high performance, basically high efficiency toilets, aerators, shower heads, all of that for roughly $70K. Within the first 6 months, they remeasured. We were saving 60% on water consumption. So that's a huge increase to the bottom line there as well.
Yeah, you don't realize how much it adds up when you've got multiple units. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. I have to, my partner has to show me sometimes because I don't recognize just how big the value is when you take it across 100 units or more. So Dasha asked, what can we recommend to family and friends that want to invest but their money's in a 401k? Who wants to take that one?
I'll jump in on that one. It's also a great way to do fundraising. If you can get yourself hooked up with somebody that can talk about self-directed IRAs, it's a great way for you to put on a webinar and get it out there to all of your investors. But people do have to move it to a particular kind of 401k or IRA in order to be able to invest in your syndication.
That's the bottom line. You just have to have them move it, and a lot of the operators know how to help people do that. Louis, do me a favor, DM me, buddy, Louis Lupero, and I'll get you the contact information for the syndication attorney. And again, he's going to be there next week. You really should be there if you can make it at all. Okay, Ali asked the question, what was your first multifamily deal purchase like? How many units, price, timing, and feelings? Shannon, you want to go first? Ladies first?
Sure, I'll jump on that. After being in Rod's program for about 3 months, I was invited to partner on the GP side of a deal in Charleston. Quite a few Warriors are on it. 79 units in a very desirable suburb outside of Charleston. Scratching my head exactly on the details. We raised about $7 million, and the deal, I believe, cost $16 million. Went very quickly. The whole GP team was able to do the entire cash raise in about 48 hours.
Wow, fantastic. Hemant?
Uh, I have a unique story. My first two deals, one was a 7 unit and the other one was a 123 unit. The 7 unit was in a joint venture. 123 unit was as a GP, where I raised around $1 million capital for that. And a joint venture happened when syndication, yes.
Right.
And the joint venture correct. And the joint venture happened when I met my partners at the Sarasota Warrior event. Those were my first partners, my dear partners, and we did many deals together. So that's my experience.
Nice. Noel?
Yeah, so my first syndication, there's a ton of lessons learned there, but I'll keep it to the most important ones here. This was a 172 unit in Waco, Texas. So huge deal for our first one. It had about just over $4 million raise. It was a struggle raising capital for that as our first deal. Definitely worked our butts off. We got across the finish line at the last possible second with the funds that we needed to close, and but not quite enough to pay ourselves our own acquisition fee. So that was, a hard lesson for us. We say, hey, we're going to make sure that the deal has the capital in there before we pay ourselves. So we ended up, basically working for free up to that point. And, but overall operations went well after closing. We were able to take advantage of the market about a year and a half later, as right before all the interest rates started to climb. This past summer, we sold, made a 16% profit for the investors. Would have been more, but we caught, like a month before closing, caught that interest rate hike. And that was, a tough situation where the buyers came to us, said, hey, lender's cutting our funds by 1.2 million. We're going to have to come down on price. So that really hurt our returns. However, still positive, but a lot of experiences, a lot of rough times.
It'd be worse today
absolutely.
If you were trying to sell it right now. But see, that's why opportunity's coming, guys. That's why opportunity's coming. Eric?
Yeah, our first deal was a 80-unit deal in a tertiary market, town of about 5,000 people outside of Indianapolis. We bought it for $3.25 million. The capital raise was $1.25 million, and we sold it 26 months later. So just over 2 years later, we sold it for $5.5 million with a 40% IRR to our investors.
Boom. I remember that phone call when you were freaking out about that capital raise, brother.
I'm gonna give a case study on it next weekend. So I'll spill all the beans.
Good. Awesome. Samuel is asking, explain emerging markets and what areas you think they might be in. And he lists Tampa Bay, Florida. Who wants to speak to emerging markets? I mean, I can if none of you want to, but let me just tell you what we like, Samuel. Of course, I love the Sun Belt. I think 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. I think that's a sure bet. The states that I'm in, which I think are all really good states, are Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, Ohio, and Indiana. Those are all states that I love. So I don't know if that helps. Yeah, I love Tampa Bay. I mean, it's been crazy though. I mean, the rent increases have been insane. But hopefully that helps. Let's just move on to another. What are the expense percentage? Unless you guys got something to add. Sorry. You guys, anything to add about emerging markets areas?
Yeah, I wanted to add something.
Yeah, please.
I wanted to add something, Rod. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So during 2008, a lot of good markets got hammered, especially Midwest, Ohio. But one thing was the foundation, the population, the growth. If it didn't go up, it was quite consistent. But during COVID, if you research on the trends, a lot of employers started having satellite offices in the smaller towns in the Midwest. So that's the reason areas like Columbus, Cincinnati, they have come up very fast, and even Indianapolis, for example, right? So the market cycles give rise to certain new hotspots, and you need to keep track of such numbers. Read reports, keep quarterly reports on track. Just be aware of what's going on.
And all of the major brokerages do analysis, and they will send you free reporting on what's going on in these markets. And don't trust one source. Compile all this and just become, more knowledgeable about it. Wallow in it, for lack of a better word. That's how you're going to become good at this. And so Yon asks, what's the expense percentage of the gross revenue currently having on assets. And we go into this in a lot more detail next weekend, Yon, but anybody want to speak to expense ratio?
About 50.
50. Yeah, 50 is the average, brother. 50 is the average you'll see.
And a lot of it will depend on the state too. We were seeing in Texas, especially with insurance and taxes, we were seeing closer to 55, even 60% in some cases.
It's getting stupid because of the insurance. Yeah, it's getting really crazy. Insurance is crazy.
Also, something based on the class of the property, the age of the property. Sometimes Class A newer properties have less expenses.
Of course. But if you see less than like 38%, I'm going to call BS, okay? Even on a brand new property, you're going to have higher expenses than that. Have any of you done a seller finance deal? You have, Hamans? Matt's asking about a seller finance deal. I mean, I have as well, but go ahead and speak to, I mean, just how you structured it. And there, by the way, there's so many answers to that question, Matt. I'm just telling you, all over the board. But you could give an example if you'd like. Come on. Yeah.
Sure. So we locked it in at 5.5%, fixed for the next 30 years. The seller, retiring person, 92-year-old guy, we gave like 10% down to the old couple. That was our first deal. The second seller finance was partial seller finance, where they carried the second note. So we were actually at 25% down when we were talking with the lender, but having the seller carry the second note, we only put like 5% down.
So you broke up a little bit, but basically,
30 unit, the second one was
you broke up a little bit, but basically the seller carried about 20%, which allowed you to come in at 5% down, and that's not that's not uncommon. It's very common actually. But I get into that a lot more detail next weekend. By the way, seller financing, just so you know. Samuel, what do I mean by syndication? Brother, you got to come to my boot camp next weekend. I can't get into the detail of that right here. And I went through it yesterday as well, though. I did talk about it yesterday. If you didn't watch yesterday, Samuel, watch yesterday. But we go into a lot. We spend an hour on it next weekend. I think that's about it, guys. Okay. Well, listen, love you guys. I really appreciate you coming on. I hope give them a shout out, please, in the chat. Thank them. Thank you guys for being here. And I know I'll see some of you next weekend on panels, but I really appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday to be here and add value to these peeps. And anyway, thank you, and we'll see you all very soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you, panel.
Take care. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. By the way, guys, again, boot camp next weekend, $47. Use the code WORKSHOP. You get the recordings. You get document library, deal evaluator software. We'll have probably $3 billion on the panels, talking about answering questions like we were doing just now. I mean, it's a deep dive on every aspect of the business, and so a no-brainer if you're interested in this business. I hope I see a lot of you there. Have a great weekend. Thanks for being here. You're going to be a success. For you to take time on a Saturday to be here, there's no question you're going to be a success. See you soon.